Majority Report with Sam Cedar, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
It is Friday, March 10th, 2017. My name is Sam Cedar. This is the four-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, it's Casual Friday. And as we do on most Fridays, we'll be joined by Cliff Schecter to go over the week, or really the last 12 hours in news. Also on the program today, a real special treat. In studio, longtime listeners of this program, I'm talking like pre-podcast version of this, will know one of my favorite guests from the old school Majority Report, Stephen Elliott, writer, director, actor. I think that's fair to say.
Great guy.
We'll be live in studio. Also on the program today, Mike Flynn, double dipping.
Dad.
Double dipping. ACLU files ethics complaint against Jefferson Beauregard Sessions. Trump care blazing through House committees, but it's going to be a bumpy ride. I have no idea how this is going to play out. Senate Intelligence Committee not impressed with the CIA raw intelligence on Trump and Russia, but the FBI seems to have another parallel investigation ongoing. We have boots on the ground now in Syria, and last week's bombing of Yemen was greater than the aggregate of any 1 year during the Obama administration. Yet, nothing in the news on that. Exactly. All that and more on today's program, ladies and gentlemen. I should tell you, now have I lost the sound sheet already? Is that possible?
It's very possible.
I think it's highly likely.
Where did it go?
I've got it right in front of me. So another week has gone by in the Trump era, and it appears Mitch McConnell supposedly slowing down tax reform because they're trying to get this Obamacare repeal and replace done. There's simply so many. There's a limited number of legislative days, and they're significantly less than business days. And statutorily, they must get this stuff. If you're going to do stuff by reconciliation, it has to be in time for the budget. So there are, I don't know, something like 60 legislative days left, which is why they're having things like 27-hour marathon sessions. In the committee hearings, Democrats are trying to offer amendments to these bills. They're getting rejected in committee. You can't offer the amendments on the floor of the House. They're trying to slow this down. And even slowing it down by a day or two or three makes a difference. But we will get to all that going forward. But a lot of this is taking a back seat to this Russia stuff, which I think, I can understand why people are concerned. And there's obviously, you got a guy like Mike Flynn in there who was apparently on the payroll of the Turkish government as a lobbyist while in the transition team. And I don't know, maybe that, they cleared all the checks before January 20th. On one hand, I mean, it's indicative of the entire Trump administration. Remember all that talk about divestment and running their businesses? I mean, now you have hedge funders.
Yeah,
not so much.
No.
Hedge funders having a convention at Mar-a-Lago. With that said, it also, I think, the idea that Mike Flynn would be a Russian agent and careless enough to be still on the payroll of the Turkish government. Now, from his perspective, he's thinking, I'm going to be in the White House. I'm going to be untouchable anyways. How could anybody get fired from this administration for doing something wrong
It's
and
pretty
lying?
embarrassing.
So I honestly don't know what to make of it. But I just want to share with you this story. Somebody tweeted me. Sam, will you and Cliff please talk about this bill, H.R. 861, to eliminate the Environmental Protection Agency? Now, I get a tweet like that, and, my first instinct is to be skeptical because there's so much of, there's always been conspiracy theories. There's always been hyperbole, and that's happening now, obviously. But so I checked it, and I went to the first thing that came up was Snopes, actually, which is the debunking site. And this is what it says. Claim. Legislation introduced by Republicans during President Trump's first 2 months in office included bills to... Now, remember, we have a completely Republican-dominated Congress and House. So, some of this stuff, I don't know. Bills to terminate the Environmental Protection Agency, redistribute federal school funding via voucher programs, terminate the Department of Education, repeal a wildlife protection rule, repeal the Affordable Care Act, defund Planned Parenthood, establish a national right-to-work law, strip federal funds from sanctuary cities, criminalize abortion, place new sanctions on Iran. And if you know Snopes, the next thing that comes up is the rating. And, of course, it's mostly true. It's mostly true. I think the thing that they found that was not fully true was that actually the list has gotten longer. So it's really important that we, and I think I said this yesterday, but walk and chew gum here instead of just like walking or just chewing gum.
I'm not familiar with that.
I'm not going to associate any one specific thing with gum chewing or walking. It's just it's a metaphor.
Cuck.
Folks, the Casper is an obsessively engineered mattress at a shockingly fair price. Saul is now 4. He sleeps on a Casper mattress, and he's doing a great job. Actually, to be honest with you, he has not peed in it. I'm not.
You think he respects the mattress so much?
Listen, I don't want to get in trouble with Casper and make promises that they can't deliver on. But I can tell you from my own personal experience, you put a kid on a Casper mattress, he doesn't pee on it. And I can tell you, he's peed on just about every other single surface in our house.
I haven't mine either.
Matt hasn't
And that
either.
says a lot.
And we I think we're going to get that second one because whenever we put him to bed on it, we end up falling asleep. And here's the best thing about Casper. You can try Casper for 100 nights risk-free in your own home. If you don't love it, they pick it up and refund you everything. They have free shipping, not just into the United States, but into Canada, ladies and gentlemen, where I know that is a big problem with people peeing on their beds. I don't know. I said that. With over 20,000 reviews and an average of 4.8 stars, it's quickly becoming the internet's favorite mattress. Here's the deal, folks. You go to Casper.com/majority, get $50 off any mattress purchase using the offer code majority. So you go to Casper.com/majority, use the offer code majority, get $50 off. Terms and conditions apply. So last night I was on, I did Chris Hayes' program, and you know this is going to lead into a pitch for Harry's. But let me tell you also what happened. So afterwards, I'm not going to do the gut feel thing now. I was actually thinking about doing it. But we were on there, and we were talking about Gorka, and we were talking about this story from ProPublica, and the Trump administration has not nominated any heads for any agencies, or for a vast majority of them. But what they have done is installed like 400 supposedly temporary workers there, really a series of lunatics, ranging from Breitbart writers to recent high school graduates. And that guy's probably one of the least insane.
Yeah.
And some of them are there to actually like do stuff, and others are just there as placeholders. But
they're still doing stuff.
You remember, right? You remember all the hubbub about czars, remember? Like the unaccounted czars? Well, now you have 400 unaccountable, we don't even know their names. I mean, ProPublica did some amazing reporting to find out. And Greg Gutfeld started in on something about it, and somebody got me to, and I guess I'll talk about it later. I mean, because I want to get to Cliff.
Greg Gutfeld's a very talented guy, so I hope you were
the
really ready.
The amazing thing about it was like, and I'll get it. I'm going to save it. It's just that it is impressive. Sometimes you think, okay, a guy's not funny on TV, but he also turns out to be really unfunny on Twitter, and on top of that, not clever. And
are you a political humorist? Do you are you funny? No.
No.
Do you know anything about politics? Oh no. I don't really do any of the things that I'm paid to do.
But apparently, he was, according to his tweets, he was clocking how long it took me to respond. Did not calculate going through the tunnel in a cab on the way back from. I mean, anyways. But the point is, I was on Hayes last night. So as you know. How did I get there without a week's worth of growth on my face? Harry's.
It's a very interesting
Why does that sound weird?
That you talk about it
Hair
with somebody
growth.
at the commissary.
Hair growth. Harry's was started by two guys, Jeff and Andy, who were fed up with being overcharged for razors.
Tired of getting ripped off.
So they decided to start their own razor company.
Don't ever bring him into this.
I'm doing Gorka.
It's terrible.
The guy, to give beta guys everywhere what they deserve. A great shave at a fair price.
They brought the alpha back to shaving.
They brought 5 German engineered blades. It is actually true. 5 German engineered blades, lubricating strip, flex hinge for a comfortable glide, a trimmer blade for hard to reach places. That's I would have to say that's and I've said this before, my single favorite attribute of the Harry's razor. Well, and the handle. Well, they can be tied. And then, of course, really the main thing I like is that they're $2 a blade as opposed to $4 a blade. And they get sent to my house. Harry's is so confident in the quality of their blades, they want you to try their most popular trial set for free. For free, ladies and gentlemen. Comes with a razor handle of your choice, 5-blade cartridge, and shaving gel. When you sign up, you just pay a small fee for shipping. To redeem your free trial offer, go to harrys.com/majority report right now. Right now.
No, seriously.
Right now.
Do it.
That's harrys.com/majority report. Stephen Elliott is doing it right now. I'm watching him do it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Cliff Schechter.
just where it goes. Nobody sees but me, so perfect and so sweet, but the rest feels incomplete. Oh, like the rabbit's foot I keep in a locket with no key, and I can't take it, I can't take the swell without you. I can't take it, I can't take it on my own, on these roads out of love. So it goes, how it feels when we fall, how we lose control on these roads, how it sings as it goes, like feel traffic stops cold, round the wailing world. And what's the sun without you? When every sunlight rises.
We are back. Sam Cedar on the Majority Report. Ladies and gentlemen, just a reminder, it is March 10th today as we speak. On April 8th at 1 p.m. in Brooklyn, America, at the Bell House in Brooklyn, America, we will be doing a live Majority Report. The first live Majority Report as a podcast, I guess, with Matt Taibbi and Janine Garofalo will be on the program, in attendance, live, in person. There are less than 100 tickets left. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you better get on it, folks. Right now.
Very demanding.
Go to
today.
Bell House. What is it? Bell House, New York. Bell House,
I think
NY.
it's NYC.
NYC. We'll put a link on the front page of the blog. Folks, it's Friday, and I'm very excited to have Stephen Elliott listen to this theme song that we're going to play to introduce the guest before Stephen Elliott comes on. Of course, I'm talking about, well, I'll let the theme song tell you.
Cliff Shackdown, Libertas LLC. New media, public relations, and strategy. You want any of these services, you know who you gotta see. Cliff Shackdown, Libertas LLC.
Hello, Cliff Schechter. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Sam?
Well, you know, it's the Bush era. I mean, the Trump era, I should say.
You get lost at some point.
Yes,
right?
exactly. I just
hey, let me say one thing
drinking
quickly.
too much,
Can I do
eating
that?
too much. Yes.
Quick announcement for all the folks who've been so supportive, which is in a couple weeks will be the big announcement of my starting my podcast.
Oh.
I've got a special something coming.
Yes.
To say anything more would be to give it away, but it's something kind of cool that's percolating, and within a few weeks we will be there. Meantime, GoFundMe, folks. If you feel like chipping a little bit more in, please go do it. But
Unprecedented.
That's
Unprecedented, right. Okay.
Unprecedented podcast. You can find it there. Chip in a bit. I'm putting the pieces together.
Great.
Pretty excited. And now let's get to Paul Ryan's lack of knowledge of how basic insurance works.
Well, before we get to that, I mean, broadly speaking, I think there's a lot of, there seems to be widespread agreement that the White House did not realize how much, and even Paul Ryan, although I find that very hard to believe, didn't realize how much resistance there would be to this bill. I mean, what do you make
have
of that?
these guys been alive during the past 10 years or 5 years?
But do you think
that's
that's
the thing.
true? Do you think that's true? Or do
No,
you
I think they're lying. But although if they're not lying, what the hell's wrong with them for the fact that they weren't ready for it. They don't seem ready for it. They seem to have gotten caught flat-footed by not only a number of members of Congress from the right coming out and slamming this thing, but the Heritage Foundation, Freedom Works, who else? Name another kooky right-wing group.
Norquist, right.
Right, Club for Growth. The thing is, again, I think we've touched upon this, but I think it's become clearer and clearer. The Republican Party, at least in Washington, is no longer a governing coalition. They cannot govern. They cannot get a majority together on anything, because you have basically a branch in the Senate, some of whom have won from swing states, and particularly in a case like this, we're dealing with Obamacare, which they've told all sorts of lies about, as people have found out more and more about the fact that, oh my God, that's actually my coverage, not the local name for it. People realize they don't want to lose their coverage, even people who voted for Trump. And a lot of the states that were core states that voted for Trump are states with older, whiter people who rely heavily on Medicare, Medicaid, Obamacare, you name it. So they're basically screwing the people that voted for them, and these people are finding out slowly that that's the situation. And so they can't, maybe there's certain aspects. I suppose they could all get together and agree on just a tax cut maybe, but mostly they can't govern anymore because there's too many different factions, and they spent a generation radicalizing, and that's the term we never use here. We'll use it like, when we're talking about something in the Middle East, in the Islamic world, or we'll use it in other places. We don't tell the truth, which is Fox News and places like that haven't made people more conservative. They have radicalized people. They've militarized them. Almost turned them into sort of a militant wing of the right that really believes this worldview where all spending is bad and is just a waste of money, particularly as long as it's on people that aren't you, and that being mostly white people having an opinion. So the problem is that to get a coalition together, they're losing people from the left because they want to destroy Medicaid. And you've got, perfect example, Rob Portman from my state here, which is a swing state, has signed a letter saying he will not vote for it if it gets rid of our Medicaid. You've got, Lisa Murkowski doing the same thing. Right. You've got, in Alaska, you've got, who else is on that letter? A few other, Shelley Moore Capito, because West Virginia is very reliant upon Obamacare.
Garland from Colorado, Gardner from Colorado.
Yep, Gardner from Colorado. Then you've got Murkowski again, and throw in Susan Collins, who's from the oldest state in the country, by the way. It usually goes back and forth between Maine and Florida, whose people will be crushed by some of the Medicare cuts in this thing as well as Medicaid. But on top of that, they both were the only two, I think with Mark Kirk along with them, and he's now gone, who stood up against the defunding of Planned Parenthood. So Murkowski and Collins, and that's what this thing does too, are both saying, So they lose an additional vote on that, and somebody has to explain to me how they keep Dean Heller and Jeff Flake aboard, who are in two older, whiter states that, yes, are becoming much more the huge growing Latina population, but still a lot of retirees who've ended up out there, and low, particularly in Nevada, low levels of education. So people are going to be more reliant statistically on things like Medicaid, and they have to run for re-election in 2018. So you really have now a pool of 7 Republican senators who, good luck getting them aboard. And Rand Paul has jumped off from the crazy right because he's a libertarian and thinks we should all just be left to lie and die in the road.
Well, also, I think, we got to keep in mind Rand Paul. Obamacare is very popular in Kentucky, even if they don't realize it, right?
Right.
Kentucky Connect.
And the Connect, because it's the same thing as in West Virginia and in large rural parts of Ohio and in these states where people rely upon this.
Voting against it from the right lets him have his cake and eat it too, right? It's the perfect libertarian sweet spot to be. I'm going to vote against this because it's not conservative enough, and if I can kill the bill so that I can maintain this insurance in my state, then I'm in great shape.
That's a great point. And you know who else you see doing that? In addition to him, Tom Cotton.
Right.
Who's also from an older rural...
Right.
And he's pretending it's from the right. It's not good enough from the right, but also being from Arkansas, he's scared S-less. I guess I could say shitless on this show because he knows that if that happens, it's going to hurt a lot of his constituents. And there's many more Republicans, because at this point, Republicans, their core demographic are poorer, whiter, working class people. And these are the states, they're rural. This is where they're winning it. So they can't get this done even beyond what they normally can't get done. But you still are seeing, even with how much more conservative the party has become, the ones in sort of the suburbs of Philadelphia, Dent and Fitzpatrick and others in the House, a couple of Republican House members, others in sort of suburban type districts in California and New Jersey and places where they've still won, they're jumping off this thing. So, I mean, they realize that that the Medicaid cuts as well as the attack on Planned Parenthood don't play well. And so, that's the problem here. Is the Republican Party now is basically controlled after their 30 years of radicalization from everything from Fox News to the NRA to, Breitbart and the rest. They've got a big group of people that won't accept anything that the government does. The government has literally no role except for to tell you can't get married if you're gay, or have an abortion if you're a woman, or smoke pot if you're somebody who wants to do that. That's the only role that I'm aware of for the government, except for maybe bombing non-white people out there, that from their point of view. And beyond that, then you've got a big part of the Republican Party, beyond that are a couple of different factions that are at war with each other. So, they're great at causing trouble and attacking things, and especially when there's an African-American president and they can make it about him. But when they have to actually put together stuff and compromise and find different things, that can work to make different regions happy, to make different groups happy, they just simply can't do it, because they've all promised to everybody that God is on their side and has told them the 100% of what they want is what must happen.
Well, what's interesting about this is that I think the problem's even deeper than that on in terms of healthcare, because they just don't have. They're trying to sell a healthcare plan, and they're not fundamentally interested in the government providing access to healthcare. They don't, so right. They're trying to have the government do something that they ideologically and fundamentally don't believe the government should be doing. And what's interesting,
can't be honest about it.
Well, no, exactly. And I was saying this the other day. They've been attacking, and Donald Trump attacked the Affordable Care Act from the left for the entire campaign. And
right, it doesn't cover enough people.
It doesn't cover enough people. It's not cheap enough.
Insurance. And then,
yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. Is it the Affordable Care Act, which everybody forgets why it was so the height of irony, and I call it beautiful to watch, was the Heritage Foundation going after this Republican plan, because Obamacare is the Heritage Foundation's plan originally. So they were the first ones who put together this plan that became Obamacare, that people like Orrin Hatch and Mitch McConnell voted for back in the day. Sam Brownback, you can find others who voted for when they were senators back in the day, because the individual mandate was what the response was to Hillary Care.
Right.
That was a way that you could have a market-based, at least somewhat market-based response to, and not head towards something where you have universal Medicare, single payer, call it whatever you want to call it. This is the conservative plan. This is the market-based plan. There is nothing else. People can say, oh, well, maybe they'll have some other plan. There is no other plan. There is no other way to do this. People, you know what? Somebody had a comparison on Twitter, which I thought was brilliant, which was just sort of, health savings accounts to people who have no money is like going to somebody who's starving and giving them a cookbook.
Right.
It's not useful. A health savings account is useful to somebody like me, because I have enough money that I can put in there and save some tax money to put money towards health care for my family. If you don't have any money, you can't just magically create it. There have to be subsidies. If you're going to cover people, you have to subsidize some people. And if you're going and if you need to create a mandate, because if you're going to cover people who are older and sicker, you have to force people who are younger and healthier into it.
Now, hold on for a second, Cliff. Hold on that very point there, okay? This whole thing with the reason why you need a mandate is because healthy people are supposed to have to pay for sick people. Let's turn for a moment to the guy who's willing to roll up his sleeves and actually turn on a PowerPoint and be innovative and disruptive
Wait, can I ask a question before you play it?
Yeah.
Is this the time when he rolled up his sleeves, put up the hat on backwards, and showed us how handsome he is lifting weights?
No. This is
Oh.
he's going to play hard later. Right now, he's working hard.
There were no
'Cause
sleeves
he's
in that.
sexy when he does that.
Yeah, here he
I'm
is.
sorry, go-
Here he is
Sorry, Kelly.
with this PowerPoint explaining what's wrong with the Obamacare health insurance system.
The fatal conceit of Obamacare is that we're just going to make everybody buy our health insurance at the federal government level. Young and healthy people are going to go into the market and pay for the older, sicker people. So the young, healthy person is going to be made to buy health care, and they're going to pay for the person, who gets breast cancer in her 40s or who gets heart disease in his 50s. So take a look at this chart. The red slice here are what I would call people with pre-existing conditions, people who have real health care problems. The blue is the rest of the people in the individual market. That's the market where people don't get health insurance at their jobs, where they buy it themselves. The whole idea of Obamacare is the people on the blue side pay for the people on the red side. The people who are healthy pay for the people who are sick. It's not working, and that's why it's in a death spiral.
Now,
There's
if
another
you-
name for that. It's called insurance.
Exactly. There is a reporter, Amber Phillips from the Washington Post's The Fix. She's an alumna from the Las Vegas Suns. Literally, I'm going to read her tweet, and maybe we can put this up on the screen, Matt. It is wonky graphs, period. A laser dash pointy dash thing, period. Rolled up sleeves and an attentive audience. Speaker Ryan is so happy now. And this, the idea that he is being characterized in this way, he has just, like you said, defined what insurance is, which is to spread the risk. Because supposedly in Paul Ryan's world, if you are part of that orange slice in there, you know who you are. You know that you're going to get sick someday, and you're definitely the ones getting old. The people in the blue graph, they're never getting old, and they know they're never going to get
That's the
sick.
beauty.
I mean, this is the dumbest. This is honestly, like, I don't even know how to express this without sounding sort of
People
childish.
in blue are Wolverine in all the other movies. The people not in blue are Logan.
This is fundamentally the entire concept of insurance, which is you don't know if your house is going to catch fire. This would be like the equivalent of this would be in the blue graph are the people whose houses are going to catch fire. In the red are the people whose houses are not. But the people in red are having to pay for the people in blue.
How can
We
that
don't
work? It's a
know
death
who's going to
spiral
catch
for
the house is going to
housing
catch on
industry.
fire. We don't know this. And so you spread the risk. So yes, people whose house is not going to catch fire end up paying to repair the house that does catch on fire. That is
And
what
you
insurance
explained
is.
it so well, Sam, because you used perhaps the best example you could use, because it's the blight on our politics known as places like the Fix that are basically just filled with fanboys and fangirls who sit there and say who's up and who's down and horse race and this and that. And, Saliza and that crew, those fucking people, I can't stand them because that's what they do. They're the ones who buy into the Paul Ryan is a wonk thing because it's all how you look. I mean, if you roll up your sleeves and have a pointer, of course you must be a wonk.
Hold
they're
on
the
for a
ones
second.
that
Let me get
destroy our
ready for this
politics.
conversation. Hold on for 1 second. What do I got here? Hold on for a second. I better put this pen behind my... Oh, all right, sorry. I should've-
Don't get too wonky.
All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cliff. What were you saying?
Just the stupidest people, and I would say out of all the major news organs, like the Washington Post probably did the best job with a couple of amazing reporters on the case during the election with Trump, whereas the New York Times was terrible at times or whatever. But the one exception, if I could tell Senor Amazon one thing, if they could just excise that whole section out, because the Fix is just so filled with freaking monkeys flinging poop at each other. They're the dumbest people in the world, and again, it's those people like that and Scarborough in the Morning, and it's those kinds of folks who have who people in sort of the mainstream media look to, who repeat this kind of garbage. I
Well-
mean, Paul Krugman has been pointing out for years that Paul Ryan's a flim-flam man, and when he tried to pass that whole, his whole budget a couple of years ago, was it 2013, 14, was he was trying to hide the fact that if it was just about balancing the budget, that would be bad enough. I'm sure we'd argue when he's trying to cut everything from Medicare and Social Security, but it never is. It's always also a vehicle to cut taxes for really rich people. That's included in everything he ever does. And so he puts out something says it's a balanced budget, and you find out he only told them to score the spending cuts and not the tax cuts. I mean, he's so full of crap.
Well,
and they buy it.
And now we should say there's also a problem. Again, this is the same problem that the Republicans have. And it was on display in the Energy and Commerce Committee, I guess it was yesterday, where Representative John Shimkus of Illinois was asked what mandate of Obamacare he did not like specifically by this guy, John Doyle. He's a congressman, Democratic congressman from Pennsylvania. Now, again, this gets back to the idea of insurance is about spreading the risk. And insurance, and we had that clip of Rand Paul when he was questioning, I can't remember if it was Health and Human Services in the confirmation hearings, about expanding the risk pool. That's the whole theory about going across insurance lines and whatnot. And here is this exchange, which, again, completely illustrates how ideologically the Republicans are against insurance because they perceive it as collectivist.
Yep.
I'd just like to say to our friend from Oklahoma, none of us think this bill is perfect. I've never heard a single Democrat say that this bill was perfect. We knew that it needed work, and we wanted for the last 7 years to work with Republicans to try to improve this bill. You guys weren't very interested in that. I'm not sure what the gentleman is talking about when he talks about mandates. What mandate in the Obamacare bill does he take issue with? Certainly not with pre-existing conditions or caps on benefits or letting your child stay on the policy to 26. So I'm curious, what is it we're mandating?
Would the gentleman yield?
Yeah, sure.
What about men having to purchase prenatal care?
What?
I'm just, is that not correct?
Reclaiming my time.
And should they?
Reclaiming my time.
Whoa,
There's no such thing as a la
Regular
carte.
order.
There's no such thing as a la carte insurance, John. You don't get to.
That's
come
the
down a
point.
list and
That's
say,
the
"Give me
point.
that."
We want the consumer to be able to go to the insurance market and be able to
You
negotiate
tell-
on a plan. they
Reclaiming
want.
my time. You tell me what insurance company will do that. There isn't a
Gentleman's
single
time-
insurance company in the world
the
that does
gentleman's
that, John.
time- the
So you're
gentle-
talking about something that doesn't exist.
I want to go and buy the health insurance program where I'm not having to pay for the cancer. I don't want to pay for the cancer. I don't want to.
Diabetes plan.
No,
Thank
I don't want the
you.
cancer. I don't want the diabetes. I
Are
don't want
women
any of
able
that.
to go buy it and opt out of the testicular cancer part of it? I'm just
Oh,
wondering.
shut up, Cliff, you PC warrior.
I know.
SJW.
Total beta cock.
Beta cuck. Beta cuck. Beta cuck. Beta
cock.
cuck.
Beta cock. Beta cock. Beta
I
cock.
don't even know what the fuck you guys are talking about.
You clearly don't listen to the program, Cliff.
Look, the bottom line is, again, this is an assault on the concept of insurance.
But it's because they don't understand it. That's
No,
the thing.
they do understand
Like he literally,
it. This
whoever
is
that
the-
jackass was, shockingly from Oklahoma, legitimately thinks that this is the way insurance. He doesn't know. Just the way Jason Chaffetz is sitting there like an imbecile. Oh, don't buy the new iPhone. Yeah, a couple $100 phone versus a lot of people having $12,000-$15,000 a year in premiums. I mean, they don't get it because guess what? We're paying for their health care. Half these guys have no freaking clue.
Well,
They've
but
probably been
I
covered by
don't
mommy
understand.
and daddy and.
Listen, there's two things. One is I think either they're just being dishonest. I mean, a guy like Jason Chaffetz is being dishonest. This guy from Oklahoma, I think, just fundamentally, A, is against this concept because it's collectivist in his head. B, is also in total denial. The state a state like Oklahoma, for instance, without the federal government, good luck getting your mail, buddy. Like, why would anybody send anything to Oklahoma? right? I mean, honestly, like, why
The
would the
federal
federal
government
government,
disappears.
we drop it off at 1 or 2 cities and the rest of you guys get, you can figure out how you're delivering your mail.
Oklahoma looks a lot like Mad Max terrain if the federal government leaves.
I mean, it is the classic dynamic, right? Everybody's
the
on the
classic
dole
demagoguery.
except for me. When I have, when I'm getting, a mortgage interest deduction on my 5,000 square foot house,
Right, but also don't miss the demagoguery of it too, which is classic right wing, which is prenatal care. He makes sure to bring up something. Why should the men folk have to pay for the women folk?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
He's playing to his base again. He may be stupidly doing it, but again, that's what happens when we elect people that are as dumb as the people who are voting for them in some of these districts. They're coming there and they're expressing the same ignorance as the people who voted for them. And for him, I don't get it. Why shouldn't we just be able to cut out prenatal care? It should still all work, right?
I got into a Twitter exchange with Greg Gutfield last night, and I cannot tell you how many
Did you
of
lose brain cells from that?
I cannot tell you how many of his followers. I would say probably, I got maybe 100, replies or something like that, maybe less. But I would say a good 10 to 15% of them said, when they were trying to criticize me, said, I've never heard of her. Speaking of Sam Cedar, like we're talking about grown human beings on Twitter thinking that their big diss is that they're referring to me as a her. So when this guy from Oklahoma talks about why we got to deal with prenatal care for women, he is like right in the sweet spot.
You didn't tell me the best line this morning. That's hilarious.
Oh, there was.
Have you gotten over that kind of a burn yet? Are you dealing with it okay psychologically?
I had to do a couple extra push-ups this morning just to make myself feel good.
Yeah, they try that one with the whole. I found a lot of fun taking away when they accuse you of being gay.
But honestly, that's the mentality that they're dealing with.
Right, that's what you're dealing with. They think that these things are really quality insults because in their world it probably is.
All right. Let's. I just want to pivot to this because to the Democratic response to this, because I think the Democrats have been good, procedurally. They have tried to slow this down in committees to the extent that they can and whatnot. But from a messaging perspective, and I talked about this earlier in the week. Mark Cuban came out with a health insurance plan that was essentially like a single-payer catastrophic health insurance for everybody, and then supplement it with private insurance. It's not particularly generous enough from my perspective. I think we can get to a different balance, but he's coming out with a proposal. Chuck Schumer, meanwhile, I don't know. Is he still in the country? I mean, did he go somewhere?
You tell me. Is there a Wall Street fundraiser going on?
I mean, honestly, where are the Democrats coming out with, if it's fix and continue Obamacare, then come out with a piece of legislation, even if it doesn't. I mean, where are they?
And actually, the great thing, they're getting teed up perfectly. Because the people who get the most screwed in this Republican plan are those over the age of 50. So, you could either come out, you can go for the whole thing, go for a Medicare for all, but a Medicare for everyone over 50 would be a brilliant response.
Yes, that's what I said yesterday. Medicare for everybody over age 45. The Medicare extension program. The Medicare.
As somebody who just turned 45, I like that one.
Medicare protection and extension program. I mean, this just seems to me, as rudimentary as going on Twitter and referring to a guy as her. I mean, this is easy. This is easy. This is so easy.
No, I agree. This is a simple response, and the problem is there are two things at play here, probably on the Democratic side, I would think, maybe more. One is the folks who've taken generous campaign contributions from healthcare and pharmaceutical companies not wanting to go in that direction and avoiding it purposely, and others who just are simply been tricked by years of DLC nonsense thinking that being more populist on economic-related issues like healthcare makes you seem like a communist,
right,
a socialist, and you don't want that, God forbid, even though, in a way, by protecting Obamacare, they are doing that, because they're arguing in favor of the government continuing subsidies in places like West Virginia and Ohio and Alaska. Republicans are doing this because they realize people need those subsidies. Well, what if we go a step further and just say people get that insurance from the government completely? So that's the thing, is that yet, you're a lot of your so-called centrists in the Democratic Party fall for this crap. You know what I mean? It's the Evan Bayh model, and they think they have to run that way, even if they're in a state like Indiana, which is the exact opposite of what they should be doing. And I think enough, it's not to say that you're going to win every race and everything is equal, but enough senators, Sherrod Brown comes to mind from my state, which is a swing state that even leaned Republican last time around. He comes out for that. He's not pulling the centrist garbage, and I don't know why they can't understand that. The other people, I get why they can't understand it, because they're paid not to understand it.
Right. I mean, it really is, just seems to be, there's this sense that the Democrats have, like, we're just going to wait for this Russia thing to blow up and he's going to implode, and then we'll get Mike Pence and we can make a deal or something. I have no idea.
There's that, and I think also we'll get sort of half populist, if you want to put it that way, and defend the parts of Obamacare that we know people like. We'll defend not kicking people off for pre-existing conditions and keeping people on to their 26 and all these other things. And we'll say that, they want to get rid of all that, which is a lot of that's true, because we know, again, the end goal for Republicans, at least Ron Paul was honest about it in that Republican debate, is that's what freedom is. You don't have insurance, you're on a motorcycle, you crash, you're lying on the side of the road, you're left there to die. I mean, that's what it's the kind of freedom you can find in Somalia and some other places. I mean, that's what the people who all subscribe to this behind the scenes, they've got an 18th century view of the way the economy should work, and we've left them behind. So the modern world they can't speak out honestly about it. I mean, a few of them have, and they let it slip here and there, and they say things, and there's a few of them who come from the most right-wing states who can get away with it here and there, but most of them who come from places where there's any thought, let's say beyond the 1950s, can't. And so they'll pretend that theirs are going to cover more people, which clearly it won't, and the premium costs will go down under them, which of course it won't. Nothing will get better under a Republican plan. It will only get worse. And if they were honest, they would try to make the argument that it is not your responsibility to take care of other people, because that's what they believe, that insurance as a concept should go away, I guess.
Yeah,
all on your own.
Yes, and I think it gets back, and I don't want to keep looking backwards, but there was a fundamental, I think, problem with the reaction to Clinton's loss, not just by the sort of the Democrats that we're talking about, but I think even like Bernie supporters on some level, or and that is that it was as much about Hillary Clinton campaigning on the wrong things. I am quite convinced that if Hillary Clinton had campaigned on the positions that she had taken in the primary, and I mean campaigned on them, and anybody wants to tell me that she did have this on her website, that's fine, but we now have seen the data where no presidential candidate in the past, I don't know what it is, 5 or 6 campaigns, has brought up policy less than Hillary Clinton did. Had she run on, even as flawed and as not far enough as those policies were, relative to Bernie Sanders, had she run on those, I'm quite confident that she'd be president right now. For all the other flaws, it might have been too closer than it should have been, but that that's one of those but-fors that would have made a difference. Talk about policies. And the Democrats,
well, and specifically,
and the problem is
policy that's going to help people, that's going to find ways to ease the burden of people getting squeezed.
Of course, and the mistake that the Democrats have made is that they didn't learn that lesson. And frankly, the mistake that I think many people who were supportive of Bernie and still probably voted for Clinton, but want to interpret the election also make the mistake of not acknowledging that it was just a failure to run on the positions that she actually had, as opposed to her positions were not to the left enough.
No,
because,
she had some actually very populist positions on a number of issues. You're right. She just didn't talk about them.
So annoying.
No, it's incredibly frustrating, and I think it came from an arrogance that they'd have a couple more, that they could sort of do a balance, right? That by running that kind of campaign, they say to themselves, we'll still hold Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. I mean, and they almost did. It doesn't make it. They still screwed up, so don't get me wrong. But at least the Michigan and Wisconsin came very close. And by doing it this way, we'll also bring in those moderate suburbanites, and
right.
we'll win.
I mean, I think they were
in Arizona and Georgia and Texas, and they lost Arizona and Georgia each by 5 points. So that was right. They got a lot closer. But my calculation always was, you run and you appeal to those demographics in places like Georgia and Arizona, but you don't do it by hiding who you are. I mean, we have these sort of very simple stereotypes.
I mean, look.
In some ways, they're no different than racial and other stereotypes. Well, all suburbanites are not, must be doing well, and they're not going to be in favor of economic populism. Don't be so sure of that.
It's quite possible that Hillary Clinton did show them who she was in terms of her policies. I'm not even making an assessment as to whether or not she believed in any of that stuff, or whether, because I think part of that decision they made was ideological. But the bottom line is, is that you need to run on policies. You need to resist Donald Trump and the Republicans based on policies. It's not going to be enough to say this guy is corrupt, because everybody knows it and he's getting away with all of it. It's not going to be enough to say he's grotesque. It's not going to be enough. You need to start talking about the Republicans and this set of ideas.
And I want to add to that, because I think this is important too, because we're talking about lessons Democrats learned. And to me, the wrong lesson learned, you'll lose some suburban, people who are more fiscally conservative or whatever the hell they're calling themselves these days. Sure, you'd probably lose some of that if you were outwardly economically populist. But my guess is you'd pick up some other folks that you didn't get or didn't bother to turn out. And that's the thing. It's not, I don't believe it's an either or. It's not that you shouldn't be playing to try to win the growing demographics of Georgia and Arizona, particularly, for example, among Latinas. Well, if you're out there and you have a strong position on immigration reform, guess what? I don't think they're going to be like, they're going to say, oh my God, yeah, absolutely. Oh, but, now she's arguing that people should have the right to college, if they make under $125,000 a year. So I'm not going to vote for her anymore. And that's the problem, is you're trying to be too cute by half. Come out to everybody with your message, exactly what you stand for. And I think the combination of policies there, if you talk about them, will win you increased amounts of the electorate in places like Arizona, in places like Texas, in places like Georgia, while you also will hold those other states.
Cliff, we're going to have to pick this up next week, buddy.
We will. And the thing is, Sam, there will be more dumb shittery between now and then to talk about.
Oh, God, I have no doubt about it. And I will have consumed more
Don't get too upset about it, Cliff Arena.
Coffee.
Oh, well, here's one thing that I'll say as I leave for you guys to have fun.
Bye, lady.
Did you guys see how one of the moons of Saturn looks like a piece of ravioli?
That sounds like beta cuck news to me.
No, well, it is.
Oh, look who likes science.
I'm telling you. I mean,
sorry, lady
even
boy.
Michael Brooks
Lady
never
professor.
gets beyond his few books on the depressed white male. But if he ever were to, and were to look beyond that, you'll see out there.
There's a picture. It really does look like a ravioli.
That actually does. That's
See,
weird.
it looks like ravioli. Show that to people. That makes people happy.
It doesn't look like a ravioli.
I mean, it actually,
Who makes
it looks like a pill.
It looks like a ski mogul, isolated.
It could be. Well, now I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna let you guys debate that with your next guest.
All right.
I wanted to bring some fun to you before I took off.
Really appreciate that, Cliff.
Is it that time
have
of the
a great
month?
weekend.
Yeah.
Good, go with that one, Mike. Good luck.
All right. Bye.
Take care.
Go
Bye,
do
folks.
your nails. Got you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break.
Do we want to do the Jimmy song? The quick break.
Just get that out of the way.
We should. Why don't? Why would
I didn't
you?
mean it like that. I didn't mean
Oh
it
my
like
God.
that. I apologize.
All right. Well, why don't you get up, Michael? Let Steven come in so he can hear this, and then I'll give Steven a proper introduction. We won't cut over to Steven yet. We're going to go to Split screen, is that what we're going to do? Or? All right, we won't do that yet. We're just going to listen to it so you can listen to it. All right, so what is the name of this Jimmy Reefer Cake song?
My Twitter Rage.
My Twitter Rage. Oh. Oh, does this involve Michael? Wow. All right. Is it? I mean, everybody thinks it's about them. We'll find out.
You're so vain. Happy Friday, everybody. This is a song about my Twitter rage. I'm working on my Twitter rage. Yes. Oh, I love Jimmy Dore, yet listening makes me even more angry at the corporate establishment Democrats who refuse to change. Sam Cedar, you are the man, but I don't understand why you disparage Jimmy when you should be joining him in the call for change. To anger I say, enough of it, but I'm proven to be a hypocrite as I unleash my Twitter rage at those who have taken to disparaging Bernie. Cynthia Dill, you make me ill. Your headline reads, Democrats need to cull the fringe, starting with the Bernie bros. Let my Twitter rage burn. These Clinton people never learn. And my Twitter rage burns on and on and on and on and on and on. Wanting, needing, reading, tweeting, drinking. Now I've lost control of my Twitter rage. I've lost control.
Well, all right. We'll do that. That was a little bit stream of consciousness.
I voted for the candidate who had a Green New Deal, so I feel proud of myself about that because you're saying...
What? Was that what was that? All right. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen. All right, Jimmy. There's your... wow. All right. Look, it's been difficult on everybody. I thought that was one of his strongest works in a while. Really? Oh, Michael really enjoyed that. Michael, why don't you try and arrange the microphone there? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great enjoyment, great pleasure, that I welcome our next guest. He was a fairly regular on the old Majority Report. Still, I mean, if you were one of those few people who ever saw the documentary, I guess we could call it, that we did of the RNC, you saw Stephen Elliott sprawled on the floor of the Madison Square Garden with his computer. We're going to tell that story again because we always tell that story. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program, Stephen Elliott. Stephen, hello. Now I should give your credits. I mean, you're the founding editor of the Rumpus. Are you still with the Rumpus? Do you still?
I'm not. No, I sold it at the beginning of this year.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
All right. Well, then I'm not going to pay attention to it as much anymore. You are the author of the Adderall Diaries, and one of my favorite campaign, road books. Looking forward to it. After Adderall is just out, you did a movie of Happy Baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
About Cherry. How many movies have you done now?
I've written, directed 3 movies now.
Oh my God! And you've got a great web series on called Driven now. Where do people find that?
You can just go to driven.show or driven-series.com.
All right, I love it. All right, so how have you been?
Well,
I mean, the thing about Driven that I like, we were just talking about this the other day, was how do people who have a platform or do art not acknowledge Trump? And the election is woven throughout, at least I guess I've seen 2 of the 3 episodes, woven throughout that. And in fact, the whole thing was premised upon the Trump election.
Right.
I mean, in some ways, I got to say that, like, 15, 16 years ago, I did a movie that was a direct result of George Bush in many respects. And this is sort of...
Oh, yeah. I mean, when the election happened, I think, and I know a lot of artists, I think, felt this way. It was a very creative time because, and I realized, why am I creating so much? And I was like, oh, because I'm like the violinist on the Titanic. Who cares? You know what I mean? I'm just doing whatever I want. Like, what's the show that I want to see? But I'd been a political reporter, back when we were first hanging out. And I mean, of course, I was never the straight ahead political reporter. I was always a little weird, but I didn't feel like writing these like straight ahead editorials when Trump was elected because there were so many of them. And so this other thing started coming out, these short scripts based around this character who used to be a writer. Obviously, he's very similar to me. He's played by me. But he had writer's block. And on election day, when Trump gets elected, he quits writing altogether, stops trying to be a writer, and starts driving for PandaCar, which is a car-sharing platform similar to Lyft. And what it's really about, though, is his story, but it's also the people that get in the car, and we follow them out into their lives. And we see kind of the large and small ways in which this election is affecting their lives. Like in episode 3, which you saw, you have Jorge, working in the comic book store, and he's got this employee, and he's telling her a story about the old Aztec rituals and the rain ceremony. And she's like, but you were born here, right? And it's almost like you just know that before the election, she wouldn't have asked that question. Right. You just know it. And behind Jorge, there's this poster in the comic book store, and it's Trump over a swastika. And that's the key to the entire episode, is that poster. And in episode 2, we have Lily Taylor playing a very angry cop, and her captain is screaming at her because she's hit some other cop with the butt of her gun. And he's like, what are you going to do? But behind him is this giant poster that says, don't blame me, I didn't vote.
Right.
And that's why she's unraveling, And so and in the opening of the first episode where I'm driving the car and these 2 Trump supporters are in there, like, do you have health insurance? I'm like, no, well, you're not going to have Obamacare either. Ha, And it's just, so in a lot of ways in the first episode, it's kind of the small ways in which the election is entering people's lives. And then, there's 11 episodes written so far. The plan is to do 100 episodes. And they get kind of progressively more political, like in the 11th episode, which is all about immigration. Well, you have another driver, and she's very upset that her son's been arrested. She's from Yemen, and she's worried that he's going to be deported. And my character is trying to tell her, well, don't worry, he was born here, so he's a citizen. And she's like, don't tell me not to worry. Right. They're not going to deport you because the Constitution was written by white people by white men for white men. You don't know anything about what's going to happen to me and my son, from your, little bubble. Yeah, and so it's, it's just been a great way to engage with these kind of concepts and what's going on, and kind of respond as the craziness keeps entering, and have a creative way of like thinking about it and presenting it back to people, and hopefully it helps them think about it. And
I feel like, and obviously I'm in my own bubble, but people who don't even sort of engage in politics as much as they did 6 months ago, even, during the height of the election, actually, my neighbor told me today, he's like, I feel horrible, but I wake up every morning and I just check Twitter to see, like, maybe he croaked. And I feel like,
why would he feel horrible about that?
Well, he
hasn't croaked.
Well, I mean, I think like, but I don't, even during the Bush years. I mean, I think for me, I think I experienced a fundamental shift. I think when Bush was elected. But I don't get the sense that many other people, and I didn't at the time, had that. In fact, that was a source of like constant frustration, I think, for like 6 years for me. But it's not that way with this. It sort of feels like everybody I know in some fashion, Like I felt like for the first like 2 or 3 months, even now, I have people like, how you doing? You know, all things considered. And everybody knows what I'm talking about.
It's true. Everything and everybody is political now. And, you know, you hope that that's the upshot, that that's the good thing, you know, that something good can maybe come out of this. But of course, you're like, yeah, on the one hand, yes, but on the other hand, like there's a crazy person with the nuclear codes. And so it's like, it's hard to see the upside, you know, because you first have to survive the downside even to get there, you know?
And my other concern and sort of is that people are just concerned that they're waking up to the fact that we have a lunatic in the White House because we've just had a lunatic. Like they're not waking up to that. They're just aware of it. Like, I don't know that there is, and this is, I think, a category error that I'm a little bit concerned about, which is, are people actually waking up politically? Like, I mean, are people tuning into, the people who weren't tuning into this stuff 6 months ago about health insurance, are they going like, hey, for the first time I realized like Paul Ryan is full of crap.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it's like those polls of Democrats saying that they're like, Mike Pence, not optimal, but okay. That doesn't seem structural wake up. That seems people are concerned because Trump's a lunatic.
There are people who are more concerned about our government, but for a very obvious reason, right? I mean, it's like one thing to sort of say like, you've had bad electrical wiring in your house for years. And when it catches fire, like people are awake, like, oh my God, there's a fire. Mm-hmm. But they're not necessarily tuned into the idea that their wiring is problematic. And that's what I'm a little afraid of.
Mm-hmm. But they are interested in putting the fire out.
Yes, I think that's I think that's important.
And there's something to be said for that.
Do you think there's also a series to be done? Like, is there a mirror of this where these guys in, I don't know, and maybe there's some people in Long Island or, in, I don't know, Oklahoma, who are just like, man, every day I wake up, I feel like I'm 6 inches off, floating off the ground.
Oh, no, there's definitely episodes with Trump supporters. I mean, you have to try. I mean, this is
but they're dicks.
This is a fictional web series.
They're dicks, though,
and
right?
I think anybody,
Trump supporters.
Remember, I edited those political anthologies, politically inspired, and what they were was this was. I think we talked about this in your radio show before. Because what happened with those anthologies, they were collections of fiction based on the politics of the time, and there were all these famous writers in them: Anthony Swafford, Dave Eggers, Jane Smiley, I think. And I wanted it to be balanced, right? So I'm out there looking for conservative writers to put in these anthologies of fiction. Well, it turns out there are no conservative literary fiction writers that are really good and successful. There's genre fiction writers, but not literary fiction, which is the definition of literary fiction is character-driven fiction. Why is that? I mean, I was seriously serious. They don't exist. And it's because to be a literary fiction writer requires empathy. That's the whole key to you. You have to imagine yourself in somebody else's shoes, and they can't do that. And that wasn't something where I was like, I hate Republicans. Here's the thing I'm going to say about Republicans. This is literally something that like I found out because there are no really well-respected conservative
are you sure
literary
about
writers.
That? Are you just hanging out in your bubble? Like, what about Tom Clancy?
Because you know what would happen? Well, first off, not a literary fiction, but also you know what will happen? People will come to you and be like, what about this one guy, Mark something, I forget his name, but people kept naming what about this guy? And I was like, if you're all naming the same one guy, then it doesn't count. You know, if there's one conservative fiction writer, then there's none. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
did you put him in? Did you put that guy in?
No, but I tried to contact him. And he didn't respond. But the thing is, like, out of thousands of literary writers, if there's only one, then for all practical purposes, there's none.
I have a one serious guy named V.S. Naipaul. He was really reactionary.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
he
he's
would
a really
be a good
writer.
one.
Yeah.
I think that the problem with that example is like, I would have to know enough about like Indian politics and British politics
And
to
Trinidad,
know his positions, like where he would fall on the spectrum of American politics based on that. Like,
He'd probably be a moderate Democrat.
So, I mean, what it means to be a conservative in a different country, I'm not an expert on. I'm not going to try to say, like, what it means. What it means to be a conservative in America is that you cannot write literary fiction because you have the inability to imagine yourself in somebody else's shoes. You lack empathy, and that's why you're so into like Rush Limbaugh.
I wonder if that also is why conservatives really, broadly speaking, I mean, I'm sure aren't funny, is because they just don't fundamentally are able to sort of like tap into the human condition.
Yeah, what is the other person how might somebody else respond to what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you can be like, because we saw that with Bush, you know, and the compassionate conservatism and the idea that you can be compassionate and sympathetic. You can feel sorry for somebody, but you can't actually imagine yourself in that person's position because you would privilege, money, whatever your situation is, you know, white male status, you would pick yourself up by the bootstraps. You can't actually understand what that person's going through. But as a compassionate conservative, you can still be supportive of them because you're that person. You're sympathetic. And
it's also telling that has to be a qualifier to
Yeah,
the word
well,
conservative.
yeah,
like compassion, that's not normally what you get with a conservative, but I am that special type of conservative that actually has compassion.
Sympathy is available to conservatives, but empathy is not.
We see this play out like Rob Portman, I think, was it Portman, who's the senator from Ohio, who came out for marriage equality when he found out that his son was gay. You know, or you hear these stories.
You couldn't imagine it.
Right.
You couldn't just like make a leap of imagination and imagine yourself or somebody you knew being gay. It had to actually be there in your face.
What do you think that is? I mean, where does a lack of empathy come from? In other words, is it just a lack of something, or is it that there's something in you that pushes out empathy?
I mean, there's a lot of nature versus nurture in that. I mean, you know, you are born, or really even at a very young age, you're leaning. You're going to go in a certain direction. You know, you're leaning. You're more likely to head in a direction. I think for some people, you know, when I think of like someone I dated, and how like, you know, if you've
dated a wide array of people.
That's true. And so I can say that, and pretty much that just applies to everybody. So I can say it for anybody. But you know, if you're born and you grow up with a lot of money, and like you have all these things, then you have to kind of believe that on some level that you deserve it. And so in order to convince yourself of that, you have to convince yourself that, like, in this other person's situation, I would behave differently.
I think that's true. I think because you have to make a choice. Like, either you're going to deal with a certain amount of, I mean, because I grew up in I think a relatively very privileged childhood, and I think you have to sort of like constantly deal with like checking in and making sure that you are, you know, how much of that privilege is influencing your perspective or other things, you know, white guilt, or you basically, it's a binary switch and you just go like, hey man, I'm here because I deserved it.
Right,
I mean, you know, you got to go all Mitt Romney on
that
this.
That woman was like, my husband worked really hard for his $1 billion.
Right.
You know, and it's like, there's kind of like, and the busboy is working really hard too, and yet he's not a billionaire. Why do you think
but then
that
they
is?
say he's not smart. Then they would go for that argument. He's not intelligent enough.
That is where you get the hardcore
becomes,
libertarians, which are the most honest, where they basically say like, look, I mean,
Yeah.
God
That's not
basically
fair.
gave some of us, you know, sharper teeth so we can take a bigger bite out of the prey.
Can I go really briefly just back to the sympathy versus compassion? It's
Sympathy
really
versus empathy.
Sympathy versus empathy. Well, but in Buddhist psychology, they teach this idea that there are desirable traits like compassion or empathy, and then there's near enemies, which people confuse them with. So sympathy is actually considered like a very toxic thing, like tranquility versus indifference. It's really interesting. So like not only in that understanding would sympathy not be as good, it would actually be considered like actively toxic.
Because like, well,
condescending,
it's condescending
and
Sympathy
removing.
is condescending. If you can't, in a way, I'll take it. You know, it's better than just like the straight ahead Trump evil. You know what I mean? Because Trump, you're like, there's like, you know, obviously there's no empathy, but there's not even sympathy. I mean, there's just like, he's not even trying to be a good guy.
But he always says
you know?
sad.
Right.
There's some sympathy there. Like Schwarzenegger's getting really bad ratings.
Yeah, I don't
sad.
think that's sympathy.
You know, it's funny that you say this because it makes me think, and I had totally forgotten about this, but I don't know when it was that you guys wrote this, but the story of, and I can't remember what it was called, but the story of when Donald Rumsfeld.
Oh right,
Gets,
Donald.
Yes,
yeah. That was.
Tell
I think,
people about that.
2008. So I did a. So I've written 8 books, but this was I don't count this because it was co-written. But I had this idea for a book, and I wrote it with my friend Eric Martin. It's called Donald. It came out from McSweeney's, and it's basically a story of this guy. He's a former, Secretary of State type or Secretary of Defense kind of person who was kind of kidnapped in the middle of the night, taken on a boat, put on a plane, and he wakes up in this prison, and it's like a Bagram type prison where he's then tortured and interviewed and interrogated, and then eventually shipped to this other prison on an island in the Americas, so this character Donald, it's obviously Donald Rumsfeld, and everything that happens to this character actually happened. It's things that are documented that happened to people that were in Bagram and Guantanamo. And it was released on the same day as Donald Rumsfeld's memoir. And, in the memoir, you have him kind of like leaning against a fence and mountains behind him, And in Donald, it's the exact same picture, except it's painted instead of being a photograph. And he's in an orange jumpsuit. But otherwise, it's exactly the same. And the title is just Donald. But it doesn't say Rumsfeld anywhere in the book. It's just Donald. And here's this picture, of Rumsfeld in this orange jumpsuit. That's a pretty good book.
But it was empathetic.
It was, right.
It wasn't. That was the thing. Is like, from
he's
my
not
perspective,
a bad guy in the book. We really get into him. We come to like him. We come to understand where he's coming from because that's what literary writing is.
It was not that was the thing about it is like I entered into it like I hope he gets his time.
Yeah, you just wanted to see Ron Rumsfeld get tortured. You want to read about Rumsfeld getting tortured.
Exactly. And I just remember. That's why as you're saying this, I remembered it because I was like, God damn it.
Mm-hmm. But wait, what is it? What is his character?
Empathy.
Well, if you get into the character of someone, nobody thinks they're a bad person.
Of course,
people try to do the right thing, and so when you present a Rumsfeld type character as someone who's trying to do good and is misguided, but who loves his wife and cares about his family, and thinks he's doing the right thing, then you start to have somebody for whom you can actually maybe relate to.
You really kind of couldn't do it with Trump because by all appearances, there's no real door there.
That'd be really hard, yeah, because you'd have to get into the pain that he must feel around his inadequacies and his father and all this stuff. Because the problem is, the thing about Trump, is this came up a lot when I was writing the Adderall Diaries. I had never met a bad person. A really bad person. Everybody I knew had done bad things and done good things and was part hero and part villain. And that was normal, And then I was covering this murder trial, and I realized this guy that had killed his wife, he was actually a truly bad person. He was a sociopath. There was nothing good. There was no goodness in this person. Everything he did was narcissistic, And we throw the word narcissist around way too easily, This was a true narcissist, And then you get someone like Trump, and you're just like, it would be quite the feat to find the humanity in this person. He's really the worst of everything, To
the extent that the humanity exists in a person like that, it's just that ultimately people can get broken.
I think
people can be broken at one point.
The question of Trump is, was he ever human? And if you decide that he was at one point a human being, then the trick to writing him would be to go back to, it would be
age 4.
Well, it would be Citizen Kane.
Right.
A lot of people suggest it's his brother. His brother with the alcohol issues.
Yeah. Trump, what you're imagining, if you're giving Trump the benefit of the doubt, is you're basically imagining a Rosebud situation.
Right.
That's the best case scenario, is that he was so damaged at age 5 that he just an awful human being for the rest of the time until he died. That's our best version of Trump. That's our sympathetic.
I think you could actually probably analyze his speech patterns and his behavior and say a certain point of him is arrested probably around age 5 or 6.
Right.
On some level.
Yeah, when his dad beat him in a Klan outfit. Yeah. Right.
It's always a dad thing.
Always a dad thing.
It's a
speak for yourself, Sam.
Do you want me to say? I am.
Yeah. I hate my dad.
That was That was a huge theme of my comedy for an extended period of time. I think there was not a single project I did which wasn't like explicitly there was a I hate my dad joke in it.
That was actually funny. There was I forget who, but some comedian said some story like they met. I think it was like Dick Van Dyke or somebody like that. Really sort of iconic but random. And they saw the set, and Dick Van Dyke came over after and he said, "Hey, you're pretty funny." And the guy looks down and he goes, "Excuse me, I'm just texting my dad to tell him to go fuck himself."
I was talking to Joe Lawyer the other day. This guy, I'm working on this television show with this writer, and we had this thing of like, the guy who hates his father so much that he never learned how to spell dad.
Now you were writing are you writing a show for A&E?
So an article that I did with Epic Magazine called Silicon Beach, or Silicon is just sand. It's about Silicon
you're the
Beach.
senior editor of Epic Magazine.
Yeah,
Okay,
I've been
all
working there for a couple years now. First I was full-time, and then, instead of firing me, they put me to part-time.
Give you
which I think,
emeritus type
which
of
is good.
situation?
I think it worked. I think it's a better situation for all of us. We're really happy. And but
Well, wait,
yeah.
I want to hear the story about I want to double back for a second and hear the story about how it was better for all of you that you were there only part-time.
I mean, I'm not the best employee, Like, I've never been able to hold a job. I actually had a situation once, where I remember, I was trying to date this dominatrix in San Francisco. I was in love with her, and she just, wouldn't quite. She'd bring me over once in a while and push me away for a while. And then one day she contacts me, and she's like, she wants me to be her slave. And I was like, I've never been able to hold a job, Like, I'm not a good worker. I don't think you'd be happy with me as your slave. I'm just kind of like, And we had this actual conversation back and forth over text where she's like, well, and I'm like, yeah, there's something that goes wrong when I'm supposed to work every day, And we're talking about this as if it's just a completely normal thing. And I'm explaining to her why I'm not a good employee, and she's explaining to me why I should be her slave. And ultimately, it's just like, yeah, I don't think it's going to work. Is there some other version of us?
You couldn't get a part-time?
Yeah,
version
right.
of
That's the thing. That's what I got with Epic, right? We're like, we like you. We like your editorial input. We don't want to totally fire you. We have reason. I mean,
Can I be an associate slave?
Yeah, right, exactly. Part-time slave. Well, okay, what about Wednesdays? Wednesday slave? Because I think that maybe, but I mean, at Epic, we did a lot of great things while I was full-time, but I also made a feature film.
Right.
And
I'm sure they would have been like,
well, one day they were.
How's
They were
he
like
finding time to do that.
One day when
I
was finishing the film, and they were like, wait, you shot a feature, you wrote and directed and edited a feature movie while you were working here full time. Because that's interesting and grounds for dismissal.
Well, you're like, oh yeah, no, and other stuff too. I'm also working a book.
Yeah, I mean, and there's one scene, the scene actually
you didn't
takes
just
place.
say weekends.
Well, at the Epic office in LA, they actually have a pool there. And so, of course, there's a scene that we shot in the pool that they see. That's the Epic pool in your movie, Well, but that was after Adderall. That was my funny.
It's always
funny
easier.
movie.
It's always easier to say I'm sorry than ask for permission.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and I think that they were psyched to see their pool in the movie. Ultimately,
they were there.
And I think that the part-time thing, where I go to the meetings, and a lot of times I'm the person that knows the writer or the political person or the person they're trying to get in touch with for their story. So where it's like they give me a little bit of money, but they're not feeling completely ripped off.
Right.
And I'm still part of this thing that I really like. I love Epic Magazine. I love being part of Epic Magazine, and I'm glad that we found a way for me to stay part of it when I know I deserve to be fired. Because as a writer, I mean, what I do is I'm always taking stock. I'm very self-aware. I know these things about myself, I've been fired from every job I've ever had. I've been fired 12 times by the time I think I was 25.
Was there any that you felt was undeserved?
No. I mean, I've never felt that way, I mean, I remember that I was temping in this one office, and my only job, my only thing I had to do was answer the phone if it rang. It didn't ring that often. Answer the phone and ask them if they would like to go into voicemail. And at some point I realized if I didn't answer the phone, they went into voicemail anyway. And so I just stopped answering the phone. As all I had to do was answer the phone.
You're just sitting there.
I just couldn't. I just couldn't do it. I mean, I had so many crazy stories. You know, I was temping this place in Chicago, and there were 6 boxes of Girl Scout cookies, and I just ate all of them, you know? Or working for Mad Door Records in the early days of the cell phone, and they give me this cell phone, and they're like, you know, don't try to make calls on this. This phone is a special phone. You can only use it to call the office. It'll only call the office, so don't bother making other calls, you know. So I'm driving all over LA, and I'm calling my girlfriend in Houston, and we're getting engaged, we're having all stuff, you know. And of course, it's like $3 a minute, right? It's like the early days, I think 1996 or something, you know. And I remember the temp agency confronting me, you know, there's this bill on this phone for like a couple $1,000, you know. What were you doing? And I was like, well, that wasn't me. The phone they gave me only called the office. You know, so I couldn't.
They basically just lied about the phone.
Of course they did. Yeah. And so I just followed their lies. Like, no, the phone they gave me wasn't even capable of making phone calls outside of the office. So obviously that's not what happened. That's obviously a mix-up.
I remember one time now, I'm thinking about it, it's coming back to me, like, you and Josh Bierman went somewhere, and then, like, I don't think you came back. Like, I can't remember where it was. Like, you went to some, like... I just remember where you guys would come on for a while, and I think like your bromance started on the show.
You know the term bromance, by the way, in the Oxford English Dictionary, the OED, I am credited with creating that term.
Is that right?
And the first appearance of bromance in print is in Looking Forward to It, and it's to describe me and Josh Bierman.
And I think that started on our show.
I think so. I think
that started. We brought you guys
Shofar.
Oh my God, that's huge.
That's funny. Well, because I'm like such an uneducated person, you know, like
bromance is I mean, that is
when all like my fancy friends were like, "Oh my God, you're in the OED," and I was like, "What's the OED?" I don't know because I was raised by wolves. You know?
I remember one point you and Bierman, and I feel like maybe I don't know, maybe you went down there with fiancés or something. You went to like. Somewhere out of the country, I feel like maybe the Caribbean or something.
Right.
And you never came back.
We went to Palau.
Like
we were with Zephyr Teachout.
Is that right?
I was with Zephyr Teachout, and she had these friends who, following the Howard Dean imbroglio, I don't even know, what do you call it? I don't know what to call it. Following the Howard Dean, her friends had gone to Palau, which is essentially an American colony. But it's part of Micronesia. It's a little island, very, very far away in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And they had just left, and they were going to build a house on this island. And so I pitched the story to Harper's, and Harper's picked it up, and they paid for my flight. And then Bierman, I don't know how he did it, but he went out there. We both went out to Palau, and of course we got there, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't want to be written about." And we're like, "Okay." Harper's was very upset, but we just like hung out in Palau for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, I feel like you were supposed to come back and you never did.
Just following the election, we just went out. We were just in Palau, you know, just hanging out in the ocean and go swimming with Zephyr Teachout. You know, that was Zephyr's like what is it? You know, when you go to the desert,
debriefing, right?
You know, when you go to the desert and find yourself, Zephyr went to Palau.
That was her mission quest.
Yeah,
it was a vision quest.
Followed Zephyr to Palau.
Oh
that was a special time.
Well, yeah, because you must have known her from the campaign.
Yeah, met on the campaign, and she hated us on the campaign. You know, of course.
And you guys, I think...
Way to explain that. Why, of course. Were you using burners from the Dean campaign to call your girlfriend or something?
You know, where we think about like how Trump is with the press. There was a movement on the Dean bus to banish the press. There was actually a movement in the Dean campaign to say, not that they would not allow the press to go to press conferences and stuff, like nothing like that, but they're like, why are we organizing the press's transportation when they're just a bunch of jerks, you know?
Well, but to a large extent, I mean, the funny thing is that to a large extent, there was a very hostile press corps following Dean.
Yeah, it was. And I was actually a Dean supporter, but my political writing was funny, and I was kind of like make fun of situations, you know? And he didn't always come off that great, even though, in fact, it was like, you know, it was kind of like Hunter Thompson in 72, you know? And then like Wright McGovern. I love Dean,
right?
But I couldn't resist the humor associated with the campaign. You remember in Iowa when they sent out the perfect storm, they called it?
Yes.
And you had all of these people, all these kids come into Iowa. They're unshowered, they're filthy, they're sleeping in their car, and like, okay, go knock on doors. No instruction, no nothing. They just sent a bunch of dirty hippies to knock on doors all over Iowa and make sure that none of them voted for their candidate.
Right. Like a walking billboard saying,
just
like, we're not like you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, here we are. Look how dirty and uneducated we are, and like, and here we are with our mangy dogs.
That may have been actually the one of the fatal flaws of that campaign.
Oh,
I mean, really.
No, the ground game in Iowa, it was not actually the Scream that lost Dean the race.
Well, because he came in third in Iowa, so he
had
was already on the ropes.
Lost.
Yeah.
He lost in Iowa, and then he screamed. The scream is like an excuse. That's not why he lost Iowa.
Right.
And he lost Iowa because he had all these mangy kids who he had no campaign of clean for Gene. There was no clean for Dean. These kids were not clean, and they were just out there knocking on doors and bothering the citizens.
And the idea was that if Dean couldn't win in Iowa, this guy from Vermont if he couldn't win in Iowa, he wasn't going to win. He wasn't going to win anywhere else.
He was not, and I think that's accurate. I think he was not going to win if he couldn't win Iowa. I think it was an accurate reflection.
I forgot.
But I liked him. He was my guy.
In fact, you guys, I think, also would send some stuff back about. At that time, I was doing. Actually, one of the guys that was instrumental in launching this show from a technical standpoint had reserved at the time AdamNagorny.com. Do you remember this? And you guys were sending back like some intel about occasionally seeing like, I feel like Jody Wilgorin on the bus or something like that, or I can't remember who it was. And we were just filling it. This is all sort of flooding back.
Those New York Times
that
people
was horrible
on that particular election.
Yes, particularly bad.
Because that's when like Patrick Healy was with the Boston Globe. He wasn't New York Times.
Right.
A lot of the best people are Jeff Hellaney, I think his name, but he was with the Chicago Tribune. A lot of the people that came into the Times and were good were not there yet. It was Nagorny, and it was Wilgorin, and that other guy. The guy who, like, I can't even remember his name. But he would just, like, we're all waiting for him because he's sitting there on the tarmac on bended knee typing on his laptop because everything he does is so much more important than like 50 or 100
everybody
people.
else, right?
I mean, the New York Times reporters on that campaign were not my favorite people, I have to say.
Did they edit? Did that make it into the book? Did you ever get like any push? Like, did you ever get any pushback from that book? You know
what happened with that book? That book is 2008. I write that book in 2008. Huge bestseller. I got my own house on an island right now. If I write that book for Obama's first election,
right?
But you have like this funny liberal book in 2004. After that election, nobody wanted to read that book,
right?
And that book died. I mean, first Kerry killed me because he's the most boring candidate to ever run for office, and that's a fact. They've done studies at the University of Michigan.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
How do you how would you measure that?
They measured. They had first they had 100 monkeys, and then they had 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans. So they had 200 sentient beings of a type, and then they played them the tapes. And turns out John Kerry, most boring candidate of all time. University of Michigan study. Look it up.
More than Al Gore?
Hey,
I believe you.
Look it up. I'm not doing your homework for you.
You already did.
I mean,
I don't like to work either.
But then Bush, winning that election, just like nobody wanted to read that kind of a book.
Right.
The kind of book I had written. Whereas if it was a celebration, if it was Obama 4 years later, if I had been the kind of person that could just stay doing the same thing for 4 years, I would be in better shape than I am now.
That book would have been...
But I get bored and I change all the time. Like, okay, well, now I've got to write a memoir. Now I've got to write like a collection of BDSM erotica. Okay, now I'm going to make movies, or now I'm going to make a web series, or in 2006 I started a political action committee.
Oh yeah,
and
I remember that.
Litpack, and then in 2009 after the Adderall Diaries, I started the Rumpus. I'm like, okay, now I'm going to have a magazine. I want to be an editor. Like I just move around a lot. I get bored.
Are you satisfied with that? I mean, is that
with the Rumpus?
No, I'm saying with that with a career like that.
What happens is I think like Happy Baby, for example, was my fourth novel, but it's my only good novel. The other three should not really have been published, probably. But I needed to write them to write something good. And when I'd written a novel that I really felt was really good, and they're re-releasing that novel, by the way, in September or November or something from Grey Wolf. Then I no longer want to write a novel,
Right.
And like, I thought the Adderall Diaries was really good, so there was nowhere for me to go with that kind of writing. And also, the Adderall Diaries, I scraped myself clean. I had taken my insides out so thoroughly,
That's a pretty revealing book.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you shave with like an electric razor and there's all the stubble there and you got to shave again like a few hours later, or if you like wax, you know, and you're not going to shave again for like weeks because like you have ripped it out from deep. That's what the Adderall Diaries was. You know, it took a long time for that book to not actually represent me. You know, like I always feel like the better a memoir, the longer it represents who you are. But eventually you change, you know. So there was that. And then, you know, I made my first movie, which was just a weird thing because James Franco had optioned the Adderall Diaries.
Right,
and it was
I
taking
remember
too
that.
long. And I had written the script for him, and they said they were going to use it. They didn't. And then I just, screw it. You know, I just wrote another script. He said he'd be in it. You know, I shot it myself. 14 months from idea to the
I remember when you
Berlinale,
started
you know?
to do that.
And that movie is about Cherry, and I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's a great movie. Like, I made Happy Baby. I didn't make the movie I wanted to make, the movie that actually felt like my movie until my third movie, which was After Adderall, which was a story based on the story of James Franco making a movie about me. You know, it's a movie about James Franco making a movie about me. And, you know, About Cherry cost $700,000. After Adderall cost $10,000. And After Adderall is a significantly better movie. And so I just think that I move around in different art forms, and I kind of get to the point where I make something that I'm finally satisfied with, because you have to kind of learn how to do it by doing it. That's the only way I learn how to do anything, you know.
Right.
And then once I've done it and I'm happy with it, I don't want to do it anymore. And so then now I'm writing a web series and doing that, which I find really deeply satisfying, you know. And who knows?
Are you concerned you're going to run out of things?
Yeah, I'm totally concerned about that. You know, are you kidding? I'm so concerned about that. I am running out of things.
I felt like I went through that with my career for an extended period of time. Like I was sitcom acting, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's just too boring. I mean, I'm done. I've done it. And without what I think people would perceive as success, which would have been being on the show for 100 episodes. But, you know, you get that shit down after you've done it a couple of times. And I went through that with writing scripts and making movies and directing some stuff. And I just was like... I
mean, for a minute, political writing was my life.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't. And then political activism was my life.
But I think I felt like once I got to radio, like I'm running out of stuff here.
Yeah.
Like there's not a bunch of other mediums for me to go to.
It's always terrifying when I wake up and I realize that I've lost a thing. You know, like for years I was doing these political fundraisers.
But it's like you've lost the passion to do it.
Because you know, it doesn't come back.
Right.
And that's why in all my creative projects, like when I'm writing a book or something, I always feel like I'm in a race against time. I have to finish it before my enthusiasm runs out. That's why when I get an idea, I don't like pitch it. I just do it right away, because if the enthusiasm runs out, it's dead.
Right. You let the air out of the tires.
Mm-hmm.
You guys both realized that you could teach, right?
Why would we teach?
Well, that if you run out of things, then you can go.
No, I ran out of teaching. I did that.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, so Sam,
I taught magic. I was 4-year-olds years ago.
Yeah,
so
no, I did this writing fellowship, and I was teaching at Stanford for like 3 years, and then one day I couldn't do it. One day I was like looking at the students, I was just like, I'm lying to you.
I have this with,
and I was lying to them.
Unfortunate advice then.
I was actually lying to them. At one point I did this Jane Austen in the film class, and I didn't watch any of the films or read any of the books. And this is Stanford, right? These like undergraduates at Stanford, they work so hard to get there.
Did anybody go like?
And
Excuse me,
no, you know,
Professor.
I came with these theories, right? I was like, you know, it's really just like Regency porn, really. This was like what erotica was, you know, in the 1800s. And I was scribbling it down. I don't know. I've never read anything Regency. You know?
They're just there to get the brand
I
name
got
degree.
papers back. Give my theory back to me and why I was right in what I was saying. And I'm like,
No student said like, I get the sense that you've never watched any of this.
No.
Oh
or
my
not
God.
read. I did the Cliff Notes for the books. You know, I barely did that. You know, turns out it doesn't matter.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's why I get fired.
My wife has been like, you should just write another script. And I wrote probably a dozen television shows, pilots and whatnot. And the idea of going in and, you know, with sitcoms, half-hour sitcoms is like, you just need to, it is low-hanging fruit. If you can get through the door and they perceive that they'll buy it from you, coming up with the idea is not really the issue. I can't even imagining myself going into the room makes me almost physically nauseous to actually have to come up with an idea.
I got to figure it out for you. You need to write an episode of Driven, an 8-page script. episode of Driven. Sam Cedar. You know, Ben Greenman wrote one.
Ben Greenman?
Yeah.
I don't know if I know that.
Oh, he was one of the editors. He was an editor at the New Yorker for a long time.
Oh, wow.
And
Well, I have no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean,
He made millions of. His big score was he wrote the Kiss biography, the Gene Simmons biography. That was that was ghostwritten by Ben Greenman. That's actually where he became like a rich guy, because he made so much on that book. Because he's like, I'm not going to do it. And they're like, well, how about if we give you this much money?
That's always been my experience. The most amount of money I've ever made in my life was not wanting to go to L.A. and just kept saying, nah, I really honestly don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And they usually, their response is, here's more money. I don't know if they do that anymore.
That's why they pay you for work. They pay you to do something you don't want to do, which is, they should pay you, obviously. But anyway, I'm very excited about the Sam Cedar episode of Driven.
Well, wait a second. Before we get to that,
everybody heard it on air. He made a commitment.
You're going to get into the mindset of Trump supporters and write empathetically.
I mean,
that's your episode.
Maybe that might be actually cathartic for me because I'm experiencing this on a daily basis. In addition to like gaining 10 pounds, like literally my first thoughts the morning after was like, kids just want to eat crap, and I'm like, why wouldn't you? Like why am I not serving you candy for breakfast right now?
Right.
But you had a point to make about making low budget movies, because I've made a couple myself, and you had an interesting take on it, which I think is accurate.
You know, what I realized in my third movie, Happy Baby, I was really into it, but it was so hard, and it was all this drama, and everybody's fighting. It wasn't fun, and I didn't think I was ever going to make another movie after that, because it just was like, I was like, that's not for me, that process. And that was like $225,000, but it wasn't actually enough money for a movie that ambitious. And then when I decided to make After Adderall, which just poured out of me, I wrote it in 2 weeks,
And we should say, Happy Baby, you had some, name big actors.
Yeah, we had some, but we also, After Adderall, we had Michael C. Hall, and some other big people, and Lily Taylor and James Urbaniak. But, I wrote it in 2 weeks. I called my camera guy. He's like, well, yeah, I can shoot it basically right now or next year. And I was like, well, let's shoot it right now then. And we just I found the person to play the female lead, which was the hardest role in the movie for sure. And then we just did it. And, I had 10,000, basically because I'd been working full time for the first time in like 20 years for Epic. That was my first full-time job in like a solid 20 years or something, or 18 years, something like that. So I had $10,000 sitting around. I didn't have much more than that, but I had $10,000. I could buy a car, and I live in New York, so why would I buy a car? Or I could make a movie that's never going to make this money back.
Right.
Either way, I'm just throwing it away, and I was like, I'm going to make this movie with $10,000. And now it's like, if the agents, I used to not be willing to take phone calls from agents or producers, the actors, people. Now it's like, no problem, because I knew the answer. The answer was no. Every time the answer was no. Like, oh yeah, no, there's no money. And if you don't want to do it, I totally understand. But there's nothing.
Straight to voicemail.
So it's just, no, I can talk to you now, because now it's fine. I have it direct, and what happens is when
so there's no negotiation. It makes it clear what you're saying to people. Like, you're not stuck in that middle area where it's like, okay, if I give this guy this money, I can't give it to the other person, so I've got to negotiate every single deal.
And so what I realized was how much easier it is, and better. It's easier to make a movie with no money than with not enough money. And because most of what people were worried about, especially in something like a movie, especially like on a lower budget movie, they're not so worried about making a great living, because I've never made that kind of movie.
Right.
But what they're worried about is being screwed and taken advantage of. If nobody's making money and it's just a big art project, everybody's game. And it was all the best people that I ever worked with were all the people that want to do this. And that's why it's the best of the three movies.
That's funny. Because also I think within show business, everything's on a curve. In that sense, right? It's like, it's okay if I'm getting zero, but it's bad if I'm getting less than the person I'm working with.
Yeah.
Because that drops me down the pecking order in some fashion.
A lot of it's about ego. You have these publications. They're like, we pay our writers. They brag about paying their writers. For a short story that takes 3 months to write, and they give the writer $25. They're not actually paying the writer.
Right.
But it's to be respectful.
Right.
And that's what it's about. To be respected as an artist, is very meaningful.
Is it, do you have how free are you as a director with the other actors? Because you didn't come from this.
Yeah, I didn't know how to direct or do it. Everybody's like, how do you learn to direct? I was like, I don't know. But what I learned in my first movie, the reason I kept directing was that I loved the actors. I did not expect to like the actors. I expected to really dislike the actors because I'd never acted myself. I thought they were probably just a bunch of needy, narcissistic, awful people. I mean, they are in a way, but still, but what they also are is they're all real artists. And by that, I mean that every actor I've ever worked with or really even met, like, they all want to make something good.
Right.
Not all of them knew what good was or had good taste, but the desire to make something good trumped everything. Where it was like, if an actor likes your script, they're going to do it. If you can get past the gatekeepers and get your script to them, they'll do it, and nobody will be able to talk them out of it. The actors I've met, and I've worked with some really big actors, and it's just like, it's not about the money. I've never met an actor for whom it was about the money, and I'm sure they exist, but I think they're in a minority. And they're the actors.
You never did a sitcom with Jim Belushi, did you?
When you're I always thought that a script was like 100, and then you get back some percentage of that. Maybe it's like 75 or something. But then I realized actually an actor can read your writing and give it back to you better than you wrote it. It's like 120.
Right.
And my heart just swelled, and I was like, oh, that's what love is. Like that. Now I get it. That's the feeling of love. And I just love working with actors. And so that's my whole directing style, is like making the actor feel really, really safe and that they can do no wrong, that kind of unconditional love. And like, they want to do it this way, let's do it that way.
Right.
Whatever you want to do. And then in the end, let's get it the way it is in the script too.
That's the beauty of video.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like that 25 years ago.
Right,
well,
so
I guess 30 years ago. We got to make a decision each time. The beauty of video is that you can say yes so much more than you could back in the days of film when you're doing a low budget type of situation.
What I always do is I started doing this in my second movie, but it's my best thing I find. I have my A camera, and I light for that camera. That camera gets every shot that I know I need. And I have my B camera. I don't tell the B camera anything. I don't light for the B camera. The B camera just gets all the stuff that I don't know I want.
Right.
And then when I'm in the editing room and I'm stuck in a scene, I go look at the B footage, and there's always a way out in the B footage.
You edit your own stuff.
I have. Yeah, I edit a lot of it.
Oh, you're editing the show though, Driven, right?
Yeah.
No? Are you?
I'm one of the episodes, or two of the episodes was edited by my friend Jesse.
Okay.
I have people that I work with, or like an.
Did you have to teach yourself? What is it, Final Cut Pro?
Yeah, Final Cut 7 and Final Cut Pro. But I learned it the way I learned everything else, which is like I directed a movie and someone was editing it. I wanted to be able to take what they had done and just mess with it a little bit, and not have to wait for them. And so you learn how to do things once you need to learn how to do them. That's the only way I'm like literally not capable of learning any other way.
Are there moments in all of your your films where you just like one little moment that resonates perpetually after that? Like I can still, on the movies I did, I can still think of like 10-second snippets that just at the time was just like, oh my God, that smirk that somebody had or something was just like, that made the whole scene for me.
Of course. And then also there's stuff in the script where you're like, this is the moment, and it turns out it's not the moment.
Right.
The moment is actually no dialogue at all. It's just the one guy just sitting there with a weird look on his face, and that's everything,
So, all right, so what's next? So what are you doing? So you got 10 more of these Driven.
I would like to do 100 episodes of Driven. So far I have 11 written, and 3 of them are live on the Driven site. You're going to write one, so that helps. That helps me a lot. So I only have to write then like 88 episodes, not 89.
Right. And if you do more interviews, you can recruit even more people to do.
I'm moving to Los Angeles for a little while to work closer with Epic, and also I've written a couple pilots. I'd like to get into TV writing, even just being in the room. So I've got a couple pilots that are making the rounds. I'm getting like a lot of meetings. That used to really bother me because you go to these meetings and nothing happens. They're like, I love your script. And then like, I'll see you later. It's like, I love your script. We're not going to make it.
Right.
But I want you to know that I love it. And like, why am I meeting with you? But now it's just, I just go to the meeting and I just like have fun talking to people and like, I don't worry about it. And, everything feels like in terms of becoming a television writer, like it's moving in the right direction. I mean, I've always believed, and I don't say this when I'm in LA, though I suppose there are people in LA that are listening to this show. If you can write a novel, you can write a TV show, obviously. You know what I mean? It's just...
That's a line from that's
yeah, I know it's in Driven, and that's really Michael Cunningham, in that scene.
Oh, that's fun.
When he's trying to get me to write for television, he's like, if you can write, anybody can write a book, can write a TV show, and it's true though. It is an easier thing, and so just convincing someone in Hollywood that like I've written all these books, I've made these 3 movies. After Adderall was a closing night movie at Slamdance. It's been it's done really well critically. Convincing them, okay, let me write for your little TV show, and like it's interesting, you know.
My recommendation was don't say little TV show.
I know. I won't. I only do that on your show because nobody in Los Angeles listens to your show.
That's
so
right.
that's the only thing.
Was that someone? Was that you?
It was not me, but it was the flowers.
Oh, all right. I thought somebody was banging down the door.
People are offended by
All right,
what you're
so
saying
give me
about TV writing.
Mostly what I want to do is create my own show, but I'm happy to write for somebody else's show because I think that's probably the best way to get in. And then what I'd really like to do is direct television shows because I would love working with the actors. And when you direct TV, that's
There
all you
seems
do.
like, I mean, I'm not really, I don't pay too much attention to what's going on in that business. And, I mean, theoretically, I still have a toe in it, but it seems like there's a lot more opportunity for stuff like that, where people theoretically would take flyers because, I mean, I just know that my sitcom career started at a time when there was 5 major networks, for like a 3-year period, a 4-year period, and it was just a total seller market. So all of a sudden, it helped me get to a certain point where, once somebody gives you the imprimatur of like, you're a director, it becomes much easier for everybody else to hire you because they're not taking the risk. I would think now, like with all like Amazon and Netflix and Hulu and it's more wide open. Is that true?
I hope so. I don't really know. I mean, I've definitely had no problem getting a lot of meetings.
Right.
I have not gotten a job yet. Nobody's bought, I've written 2 pilot scripts. Nobody's bought one of the scripts. I have an agent and stuff, and we'll just see. But I think, so I'm doing this thing, which is I'm going to Los Angeles, and I'm going to live there for a while. And, like, that's a thing I've always resisted doing.
I don't blame you.
I have every single reason in the world to be in LA, except that, like, I don't really like LA.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to go and make it like a 1-year commitment to just to be there. Because I feel like if I'm just there, then what'll happen will happen. But maybe, I've been proven wrong many times. And because when you write your life a lot, like I do, there's documentation of all the times I've been wrong. So I know that like whatever I say, it's just as likely not true as true. But
well, hopefully we'll get a chance to check in with you again soon.
Yeah, I hope so.
Where do people go to see Driven?
Go to driven.show.
Driven.show. Oh, wow. Impressive.
Right? That's the easy Vimeo. That's just the Vimeo. You see all the episodes there. Or you can go to driven-series.com, and that's where you can get like the bios of everybody and also see the episodes.
I like that .show.
I know. Driven.show is the easiest way to think about it.
That's pretty good. Stephen Elliott, thank you so much for coming in, man. I'm
Thanks,
really
Sam. It's been
excited to see you.
So great to be back on your radio show. You're still making great radio.
Well, yeah, internet radio. We've made internet radio great again, as it were.
It's true.
All right. Well, I guess this is going to be a freebie Friday.
It's a great point.
We'll do a little bit of we got a little bit of sound and clips, and then we'll wrap it up. I wanted to. We got a couple more stuff of. What did we want to talk about here? Is this? Let's do this. This is really funny, actually. Let's play this. Stephen, I think you'll enjoy this. It's a pretty funny clip of when we're going to play it up there. This is just funny. It's apropos of nothing. Although in South Korea, the president has been impeached and forced from office because of corruption, right? And
corruption and connection with a cult.
You got to press the button.
Corruption in connection with a cult.
Oh, it's the whole anti-cult bias. Well, here is this guy, Robert Kelly. He's a political science professor. I guess he's in the United States, right?
I think he's in Korea, but he's obviously
he's in
American.
Korea? Oh, okay,
Yes.
He's in Korea. And this is just funny because I have been in this situation, not on Skype, but doing radio interviews on the phone and with kids in the house. And so this is what happened to this guy, Robert Kelly.
I would argue that this is a triumph of democracy. Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do democracies respond to those scandals?
And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
Here comes the other
I would
kid.
be surprised if they do. Pardon me.
The babysitter. Oh, he's so mad.
My apologies.
What's this going to mean for the region?
And he's so mad. Here, look at him.
South Korea's policy choices on North Korea have been severely.
The guy has no chops.
Wait, is that it? Is it over? No, you keep
limited.
going. But look at
6 months.
He's trying to concentrate as he hears the kids screaming in the background.
In the airport in Malaysia, that indicates that North Korea really doesn't follow global norms in any kind of way. That's a weapon of mass destruction. If it had slipped out onto a plane or something like that, it would have been a genuine catastrophe. North Korea has continued to use missiles and continue to deploy missiles and develop nuclear weapons. All of those things threaten South Korea and China and Japan. I would be very surprised if this gives us the left any leeway to run into a new sort of sunshine policy or new toleration of North Korea.
I agree. I disagree with his assessment.
No.
But I don't know. Like he could have maybe broken a smile a little bit. That was a little weird.
He does hear at the very end. The guy
that's the first time for everything. I think you've got some children who need you. Robert Kelly of Pusan National University.
Harry,
thank you
he
very
tries
much.
to plays it off because I got news for you. He's going to go back.
Yeah.
And he's going to fire his babysitter.
I'm going to go beat my babysitter
and
now.
These kids are going to be in
These
big
kids are
trouble.
going to be in trouble. What I like though is you got slow-mo on the entrance. I love
This
the
is
entrance.
really fun. The first
look
girl
at that entrance. Look at that in slow motion.
Scandals happen all the time. The question
It's
is,
awesome.
how do
Look at this.
democracies respond to those
Look at
scandals?
this.
And what will it mean for the wider region? I think
he just comes in. And then I like that baby.
That's how Matt walks in the office.
Super
It's weird.
mobile on that like little walkie thing.
The baby has the same motion. If you want to go to the baby again, the baby actually has the same motion.
Oh, that was
Yeah,
so
see
awesome.
the baby's
How does the baby
the
go
baby's baby's a genius. Check out the baby has the same motion.
Shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
Same
I would
motion.
be surprised if they do.
Oh, he's so mad. Oh my God, that was so fantastic. I love that. And I love the fact that he's got his hand out and he's trying to push the kid away without looking, as if like nobody. Oh, God. That was fun. All right. I guess we should maybe take
Are the
some-
phones on or the IMs on?
No, none of it is
Okay,
on.
people are eager.
I'm going to call our phone system in here. And
Thank you for calling in the majority.
Sam Sita. Never heard of her.
Oh, yeah, let's do this.
Gutfeld. Classic Gutfeld.
Okay, hold on for 1 second. I want to get the let's get this going. Let me get my my IMs up. And all right, so Matt, you have the tweets here, right? Okay, so last night I was on MSNBC, and it wasn't. It was with Justin Elliott from ProPublica, and ProPublica wrote a piece about the 400 people who have been installed in different agencies in the Trump administration on a supposed interim basis, but they're a bizarre group of people. There is no transparency about who they are. This is contrary to other administrations. There is no rush by the Trump administration to put in actual heads in these agencies. So these people have far more authority than in the past. And there are a wide array of people from like Breitbart writers to some 40 to 50 lobbyists. There could be more. They haven't tracked down everybody. And like even like somebody who graduated high school last summer are in charge of these agencies.
What the hell, dead?
And so, and I went on there with Justin Elliott, and I should also say Lauren Kirshner, former producer of the show, was also part of that reporting of ProPublica. And so I get off the show, and I get a tweet from somebody pointing me to a Greg Gutfeld comment. Now, Greg Gutfeld is a guy who is on Fox's The Five. He used to be, and I think he has maybe a weekend show there. And he used to be the host of Red Eye, which is like their 3 o'clock in the morning comedy show.
Across all these platforms. Always unfunny.
And so he writes, watching MSNB, I don't know if that's supposed to be I don't know if that's supposed to be some type of
classic
some type of
Gutfeld.
joke. Kelly, why don't you click over there? Watching MSNB mock Trump White House for not being up on government ins and outs. Hey, a-holes, they aren't lifetime shitbags who live off us.
Ha ha! I bet you got your panties in a twist on that one.
So he's saying that we're a-holes for mocking people for not being up on the government's ins and outs. These aren't just people who don't know their way around government. These are people who have no expertise in the agencies that they're involved in. So in other words, no involvement in health policy, being at an agency that might deal with health policy. No involvement in finance in an agency that might deal with finance. No involvement in infrastructure or building or anything like that that may even give a clue as to what they're doing. They were just various campaign apparatchiks. And part of this is a function of nobody, even in the conservative world, in the Republican world, wanted to work with the Trump people. And the Trump people didn't want to work with anybody who had expertise because they're just out there to undermine, essentially, government. And so I write, so someone writes me, would you like to respond, Sam Cedar, and links to Greg Gutfeld. And Greg Gutfeld, I find to be rather boring.
Sad.
And I wrote, not particularly, but if I were to start, I start with the 47 plus former lobbyists whose exclusive job it was to drain public money. In other words, you talk about people living off of us in caps. You would imagine that someone would be concerned about the fact that literally these people's jobs, before they went in, and we don't know enough as to whether or not they're still being paid, frankly, by these lobbying firms, was to suck tax dollars out of the government. Maybe for good, maybe for bad. I don't know. But, I mean, that seems to be the issue. And so he wrote back, you were great, by the way. Your dramatic pauses especially made the segment. Now,
that's YouTube comment level.
Yeah, this is really like, this is not terribly, well, first of all, it's not addressing the topic, right? Presumably, like, he was making a substantive complaint about our analysis. Presumably. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that was a mistake. But he came back with like, your performance was really weak. And this apparently was an attempt at humor. And so I responded with, Greg Gutfeld, good to know you're not just not funny on TV.
Not bad.
I thought that was
very respectable, especially for a lady comic.
And he wrote back, oh dear, Sam doesn't think I'm funny. I get it. You can't defend your own hilarious ineptitude, so you project. So I guess the idea was like, you won't even defend yourself for taking extended pauses during the segment.
I don't stammer at Greg Gutfeld.
And at this point, I was going to get into like, I mean, this guy should not be giving out critique of performance on television, right? I mean,
I think that we could very safely say
but
that.
I just figured I'm just going to deal with his tweet. And I said, to be fair, no one else thinks you're funny. It's not just me. And B, must you prove to us that you're dim as well? And so then he was like, oh, I'm going to unleash. Now, understand, I'm in the car on the way back from the thing, and I'm not terribly... I've gotten into a lot of Twitter fights. You know, I used to have a lot of fun doing it with Breitbart, and I would get really into it. And I've gotten into
That's a
Twitter
little more
fights
formidable.
with a lot of people. And Greg Gutfeld just...
He's not good.
Boring. Boring.
Very similar
And
to
here's the thing.
him everywhere else.
here's the thing. Well, I'll get to it. So he said, oh, Sam Seder, and now he wants to open up to his minions, right? Because he's got 750,000 Twitter followers. And he goes, that took you a while. I was checking my watch. Look, I got to go to bed to be up for work. Don't remember that feeling, do you? So he gave me the old, you don't have a job. And he's also admitted that he's sitting there checking his watch and counting how long it takes me to respond. And frankly, I'm in the car, I'm texting with some people. I'm not, I've got other things to do, even because his Twitter fight is just not that compelling. And so I just did dude needs his rest. He's got to be sharp for the 5 because, it's 9:30 at that point. And if he's got to go to bed to get his rest, to go on there and intellectually spar with
Meghan McCain
and Eric Bolling.
Really hard stuff.
I got to feel bad for that. And then he wrote one more here. And I thought he was going to bed, so I figured this is the end. And I wake up this morning. I think this is it for me because this is when okay, my car ride's over. I'm done. He said he's going to bed. And he wrote, oh, Sam Seder, what happened to you? Why no work for 2 decades? Misunderstood? Is that what you tell yourself? Why take it out on me? Need help? Now, here's the thing. I saw this morning.
Rackham. Now I understand why he has a following.
And of course, I got a lot of tweets from his fans, and there was basically 2 different replies from his fans, 3 different ones. I think he's very funny.
I'll have you know.
Don't I count? That was one model. The other model was, I think Greg Gutfeld is funny. Who's Sam Seder? And then the third was, Gutfeld's very funny. Why don't something like Greg? I guess you got her all upset. That was the rage of replies.
I gotta go retweet these now.
So when I got up in the morning, and here's the thing, I know Greg Gutfeld used to be a comedian, and
really?
I know
honestly,
yeah,
wow,
and I know. And I'm sure that he knows some of the people that I know that...
actual comedians?
Actual comedians who are friendly with him. Some of whom are very prominent. Some of whom less so. And, the thing is, it's arguable that people could say, you're not very funny anymore, Sam. And because you've gone into this business, you left. To a person, everybody says, no, he was never funny. All of these comedians who have been on Red Eye, comedians who I think, are friendly.
So people that
him.
he might think actually respect his work.
I don't know. I don't know how but because in the past, I've said to someone, how could you go on that show? And he goes, well, he's not a bad guy. He's not funny. I mean, literally, that was always...
he's a nice guy. Oh, of course, he's completely terrible.
No,
but he's a nice
just
guy.
That's the way comedians talk. It's yeah, but not funny. I mean, nice guy. And so I've helped him out or whatever. I need to promote. And I was, when I went to bed, I was just I'm going to just leave it at the 5. And I wake up in the morning, and I see, he's still, going on with this thing. And I was I reached for the phone, and I felt I should just tweet out, because he knows. I mean, let me put it this way. It would take him only a moment. If he doesn't, he may not. Although he apparently, knows I haven't been working for 2 decades.
Yeah, he seems really invested in you.
But he surely knows that we know the same people. In fact, in addition to, knowing the people who do his show, the show now, the Red Eye, which I have seen a couple of times. It's just impressively unfunny. But and I thought, oh, this will hurt him. And I'm like, you know what?
Just let it be.
Just let it be. One thing, though, did occur to me. How uninterested even my followers, not nearly as many as his followers, are in him.
No
like,
one
here's a
cares.
guy who's been on Fox for 10 years, more?
Every
less?
time we do
no
a
one
Gutfield,
cares about Greg Gutfield.
every time we do a segment that involves him, whether it's you or myself, you always need to reintroduce who he is. It's never like, obviously with a lot of these other people, it's like, it's Tucker Carlson, it's Bill O'Reilly, it's whoever. Greg Gutfield, the guy who isn't funny. You always got to reset it.
I feel like people would have been more interested in if I got into a Twitter fight with Bill Hemmer.
Yes.
like the straight 11 a.m. news guy. I don't know if he's still on there, but I mean, you got to feel bad if you're Greg Gutfield. I mean, obviously, like, it's a good gig he's got. I mean, I imagine that's pretty choice, right?
yeah.
You go in, you make a lot of cash. I mean, do you really need to prepare? I mean, it seems to me you show up, you sit down. The only thing you got to do is make sure that you don't have something stuck in your teeth.
You can sexually harass everyone.
I mean, yeah, who knows what
really?
happens in the commissary over there. But you also got to feel bad that you're a bomb thrower on this network, right? I mean, because it's not like he's constrained by his journalistic integrity. And he doesn't, do they even have a search tag for him on Media Matters? Like, no one cares about this guy. No one cares. And at least on the left, we spend a lot of time in digging into stuff. But
as I say, part of the reason I need to always reintroduce him is because I forget who he is, literally. And he's never the center of a clip.
It's because it's of Eric Balling. It's because he and Eric Balling are sort of interchangeable. And they're both there. They're just saying stupid.
Balling's better.
Equally funny.
Balling's slightly better. But it does settle a big debate. Who is funnier, lesbian or gay guy?
Let's move on. Let's move on to some other stuff. Some more important things.
Like anything?
Exactly. All right, let me take some IMs here. MLR CFA, you guys there? Love Sarah Palin. Republicans replaced empathy with the "if that was me, I would" thought experiment. Republicans in Congress assume people's actions follow the economic quasi-theories as their Wall Street donors believe. CPW, how badly did you want to do Gorka voice on Hayes last night? Pretty badly. In fact, before when you brought up the "I am not a communist" line, I was on the edge of my seat. I almost did. I said this guy addressed the charges of being a neo-Nazi by saying I'm not a communist.
Did you call Chris a beta cuck?
James, I did in between the segment.
Good.
So I saw you're now following the last liberal on Twitter. Just wanted to know what insights you've received on your aggressive leftist agenda since you decided to follow the light of the left. Serious note, do you think any benefit would come from having that discussion? All right, so we had people, Twitter at both Michael and I about, because what's his face? Dave Rubin wanted to have liberals on. And I just basically said, yeah, available. And people kept pushing it. And so I finally said, look, I'm going to follow you so you can DM me. And I got to say, it is, it's like castor oil. It really is like just sitting there, because I also have to still, project that I'm going to be, polite discourse and go back and forth. I mean, here's the thing. If you think Dave Rubin is interested...
I'm not projecting that.
Yes, I've noticed that. If you think Dave Rubin is in this for the discourse, do the slight calculation as to the people he brings on are, if you were to set a marketing plan for yourself. I mean, it's the same, right? I'm going to have a discourse with Alex Jones because he's really getting down to the bottom of something.
Well, my core market of aspiring school shooters who don't like Muslims. Yeah,
the marketplace of ideas works.
The marketplace of the emphasis. It's funny because I've always been noted how kind of distinctly stupid he occurs to me, but he's smart to not have us on.
Oh, I think
no, for both very no. I'm talking about numbers reasons.
Probably both I don't think he could perceive it as helping him.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think he has no idea about anything that he talks about, but he does know his plan and he executes it well.
Nuclear Negroid. Can Michael please do an impression of Marcus Bachmann reacting to last year's Supreme Court decision on gay marriage? And can he do it as a 1920s paper boy so that it is an offensive to Chris LaPaca.
Total affront to the marriage institution of marriage, say?
Is that? No.
Well, that's like an old newscaster. I don't even know. What would a paperboy sound like?
X-ray, read all about it.
Read all about it. I'm totally hetero and happily married to my wife, Michelle Bachman.
Chris LaPaco, do you stiff arm your kids like that when they want love, but you're trying to figure out the cost of high-risk pools? Yes.
You see, I agree. I don't think that really looked very good. I think he should have been a little bit like...
It looked bad.
Yeah, he looked like he's elbow checking his daughter.
You've got to have awareness of what the frame size is. Like, he thought that he was just like pushing the kid out of frame, but it was... But I will do that to my kids. I will do that to Mila.
For anything.
Like...
But she's not tiny.
No, she's not tiny, and she'll come at you hard.
I'm afraid of her.
Honestly.
That's like my dog. I do that to my dog with the arm.
Comparing my daughter to your dog?
No.
Well, the dog's probably a little bit more chill.
No, Mila can take care of herself and push back on the arm, and so can the dog. The dog doesn't give up because you push him with the arm. The dog isn't a, 3-year-old child?
That's right. Colin Doucette. I can't do all of this, but Trump Joffrey, my mom and aunt and my dad uncle were in love. I feel the same way about Ivanka.
Totally unfair.
Mark Maron. Hello, Sam. Yesterday you finally admitted you listened to WTF. How big of you? I see you're doing a live podcast. Where'd you get that idea? How would you like it if I invite Ronald Reagan into the Cat Ranch? Art. If better relations with Russia means an alliance of authoritarian klepto plutocrats addicted to petrodollars, no thanks.
I agree.
Mailman. Gutfield did make it clear how he felt about civil servants calling us shitbags. Yeah, indeed. Cat. Little known bill, H.R. 1313, just passed through Education Workforce Committee on party line vote, would let employers demand workers' genetic test results. Ugh. Sam Cedar is no Andy Kindler on Twitter. Born Blue, why should men pay for prenatal care? Let's start with the fact that prenatal care is for the benefit not only of the mother, but the child as well. Child who may as likely be to be male.
You call me a child?
But why should
they have not proven that they are not cocks yet?
Why should a man pay for some entity outside of themselves?
The fetus is not viable until it is proved non-cockatude.
Bullprog. At first you seemed like a Miranda, but I always knew you were a Sam Antha, you sassy minx. Boys rule, girls drool. John Miller, I'm watching the show and saw that Sam is wearing black on black, and I thought to myself, what's going on with her today? Is everything okay? This is blue on blue. We just don't have the right...
It's wrong.
It looks blue.
I'm officiating a kickball game later, and so I'm dressing like an umpire. Austin Peterson responded to right-wing Mandela on Twitter. Get him on the effing show. He's been on the show. Multiple times we've had him on, right?
Who?
Isn't he the guy? Wait, is Austin Peterson the
He's the we're going, we don't need roads guy. About the jetpacks.
Okay.
Have we had that guy? I don't know.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I thought I got him confused with the Austin who didn't want there to be lesbians on Chopped. Did you ever hear that?
Oh no, that was he's not a libertarian.
Guy?
He's an ultra Christian guy, and he did like a whole. He actually got on the show through Twitter because he was like being like, Sam Cedar supports another Holocaust and wants my daughter to see lesbians at all hours of the day. And then he got on the show and he's like, well, I was being a little provocative, just hoping to get booked.
This IMer says, and say my name, you cuck. It's oven ready beta cucks. White male lawmaker, I don't want to pay for prenatal care because I'm not a woman, for sickle cell anemia because I'm not black, but I'll pay extra for proctology because I'm a giant a-hole. Drewski. That Donald story sounds very similar to an amazing song by the legendary Canadian thrash punkers Propaganda, Iteration. It's a song about Rumsfeld being sentenced for war crimes. Can't gouge 10,000 eyes from a single head, so I think we should observe a sentence that will serve to satisfy both a sense of function and poetry. So you'll spend the rest of your days drenched in sweat, your face drawn in a rictus of terror as you remove another buried landmine fuse. Lady Cuctress. The best part of watching Sam get into a shitty Twitter fight is knowing we'll get the play-by-play the next day on top of the retelling of the earlier retelling before you guys were on air.
You don't get all of that, I can assure you.
Gorka Whale. Be careful getting into a kerfuffle with Gutfield and Rubin. They're the gateway drugs for having to do a video for Prager University. Speaking of Prager University, that's where I got my degree in marine biology. Ryan from Ohio. Rand Paul refusing to toe the party line has released his own Obamacare replacement plan, a.k.a. Healthcare Never Sleeps. Bertold Meck, Beta Cuck, Baba Booey Gorka is the king of all alpha, Baba Booey, Beta Cuck.
Beta Cuck.
John Huntsman Jr. I told the president you should drop out now, but I'm willing to drop my fly. Plants on Fire. Amber Phillips is the same hack who chastised Bernie Sanders for correctly identifying Donald Trump a liar. A silver lining of future executive order that ships the Post staff to re-education camps that will include the star effers. At the
she is like, I almost feel like she's made in like a lab or something. Like she embodies everything that's bad about that type of journalism. It's kind of extraordinary. And the whole column that she criticized Bernie in too, like there wasn't even like a tip of the hat to like, what about the part where Trump is actually lying all the time? It's pure I mean, it's amazing.
Justin Amash cried because he missed a vote. Just saw that pop up. This is actually one of those moments that I particularly enjoy, where a Republican talking point bumps into. So much of the bumps into a greater authority, and what I mean by that is so much of what you see on the right, because in many respects, if they're not full all-out authoritarians, they respond to those cues. And so, for instance, when Greg Gutfield on Twitter's fans respond to what I say, it's all about Greg has 750,000 followers and you have 50,000. Who are you, lady? So it's nice to see them when they get slammed by just authority, because it's not like they actually know in depth what they're talking about. It's always just sort of some type of signifier. Here is Ali Velshi. He is an MSNBC host. I guess he does the afternoons. And he's quite good, actually. He used to be on CNN, right? And
CNN,
then
Al
he was on
Jazeera, MSNBC.
Right. And he's on with Representative Jim Jordan from Ohio. And they're talking about universal health care systems around the world. And here's that exchange.
For working class families. And I was just saying to Bill Kristol, nowhere on the face of the earth is there a free health insurance market that works. If you could point me to one and say that a free market
Pause
works.
it. Now, I just want to make a point here. This guy, if I remember, was a financial reporter on CNN, and he is saying that there is no free market health insurance in the world that works. That exists and functions without some form of government support. And even before Obamacare, we didn't have we support the insurance industry by taking the oldest people in the country and putting them on a government program called Medicare. And so here, continue.
Health insurance market that works. If you could point me to one and say that a free market works, it's just one of those areas that a free market doesn't work.
It will work much better than it's working now under complete government control of healthcare, for goodness sake. Do you think people are satisfied now? How about people in the individual market who went from paying, single people individual market went from paying $100, $200 a month to paying $500, $600 a month for a $6,000 deductible policy?
You know, sir, that in all those countries, all the developed countries that have single payer systems or universal health care, happiness about health care is actually substantially greater than it is in the United States.
Then why do they all come here? Why do they all come here for treatment?
They don't all come here. Republicans say that all the time. They don't all come here. They don't all come here. People in Canada, people in Norway, people in the United Kingdom, people in Sweden, people in Denmark, they don't all come to the United States for health care. Why do you say that?
Well, because you see it all the
just
time.
not true.
People in Canada come here for extensive surgery. They come here and get it done in the United States.
Sir, I grew up in Canada. I live in Canada. My entire family's in Canada. Nobody I know ever came to the United States for health care. I'm sure you have a handful of stories about things like that. It's not actually statistically true.
Yeah, well, you think Obamacare is great? You think the idea that...
No, I'm absolutely not saying that. I'm not arguing Obamacare. I'm arguing the fact that you keep on saying that a free market works.
Yeah, there you go. I got to hand it to Jim Jordan. He changed the subject really quickly.
Like, oh, yeah, so you like Obamacare?
You're demonstrably pro-pedophilia?
There are actually some...
He just had to get out of that, I bumped into a Canadian. Ooh.
It's like, I thought you were fucking Arab. What the hell? Totally unfair. You did my staff brief me.
They're getting so tricky these days.
Yeah. Wait, I thought you were like the fucking jihadi MSNBC host. Now you're Canuck?
This is pretty funny, too. Chris Hayes had Congressman Leonard Lance, who was on the House Energy and Commerce Committee. And we've made this point. The Republicans already have a bill that they passed in 2015, the House and the Senate, because they knew it was going to be vetoed by Barack Obama to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. They can't agree on that. They've come up with a bill and they need to rush it through because they're afraid of opposition from all quarters, essentially, defeating this bill. And here is, and you'll recall, right? They rammed Affordable Care Act down our throats.
They
took
it.
They jammed it.
They
rammed
it.
Hammed
They inserted it. They forced it.
All down our throats.
Down our throats, regardless of gag reflex.
Nobody read the bill.
Because it's too big. You can't.
Here is Hayes with Leonard Lance from the House Energy and Commerce Committee. The Democrats tried to slow the process down in committee. They extended it for 27 hours. They had a 27-hour marathon session. But here is Hayes asking a simple question of Leonard Lance, and he really doesn't want to answer it.
How many hearings, open hearings with witness testimony and the like, have you had on this bill?
We've had a series of hearings over the last several years on the Affordable Care Act.
No, in this Congress, though. How many hearings in this Congress on this bill?
We have gone to the American people with Paul Ryan's Better Way, and we campaigned on the fact that we were going to improve the system.
No,
and
I totally
think
get
that's
that,
what we've done.
Right, no, I get that, but there's legislative language now. I'm just curious, how many hearings has your committee had on this bill?
We had a 27-hour marathon session, and I think all of the issues were vetted, and I was very proud of the committee in our bipartisan capacity.
The one that went through the night. But how many hearings with witnesses called to offer their expert testimony, whether that's doctors, people from the insurance industry, other folks, how many hearings has your committee had on this bill?
We've had a series of hearings over the last several years on the issue, and we campaigned, Chris, on this matter over the course of the election cycle.
In this Congress, I'm sorry, I don't want to belabor this, but in this Congress, is my understanding, in this Congress on this legislation, there have been 0 hearings, but for the 27-hour marathon markup that went through the night. Is that correct?
And also the marathon in the Ways and Means Committee, and also the fact that we have explained our position, and it was completely transparent over the course of the 27 hours, and I thought it was an excellent discussion on both the Republican and the Democratic side.
Congressman, you're talking about a fifth of the American economy. You're talking about maybe 15 million people losing health insurance, and you're saying that 27 hours going through the night is sufficient.
I think that we have to move forward. I suspect that when it gets to the Senate, there will be a discussion there, but I do think the American people, Chris, want us to reform Obamacare, and I am committed to doing that.
I suspect there'll be discussion on the Senate floor.
I also really liked the 2-for-1.
What's
like, it's like, you're not counting also the Energy Committee.
Right.
So when you combine those, that's like a lot of time, man.
And that's also a reminder. The CBO is expected, because the Republicans are trying to rush this so quickly, the CBO doesn't have a chance to score it, as they call it. But it's anticipated that 15 million people will lose their health insurance over the next 10 years. We'll have 15 million less insured because of this bill. So, but who knows what the bill's going to be? There ain't going to be any hearings. Boop-boo, doop-a-doo, oop-a-doo.
Well, it's a short bill, so you don't need hearings.
Meanwhile, Fox's Ed Henry sat down with Rand Paul and suggested that Rand Paul is putting the Trump presidency in peril. One can only hope.
Subsidies, the mandates, the bailouts.
I've pushed you on
just do repeal.
What they say is wrong with your idea. In your support, Republican Senator Tom Cotton today basically agreed with you and said that the House Republicans may wind up with something that's worse than Obamacare. Right. And so the Speaker said, however, you're making a binary choice, Senator. If you don't do this, you're not really following through on the promise to repeal and replace Obamacare.
Let me translate what it means. When someone tells you you have a binary choice, they're telling you take it or leave it. The Speaker needs the Speaker needs to like bring people into the room, conservatives, and needs to hear what we want. We are withholding our vote. This is a message for the Speaker. We are withholding our vote. We want a seat at the table, and it's not a binary choice. If we do not understand why we're in a death spiral with Obamacare, we can't fix it. The reason we're in a death spiral is we're telling people you can buy insurance after you get sick. So guess what? People are waiting to buy it until after they get sick. And that still happens after Paul Ryan's
last question.
plan. He doesn't fix that problem
But the
at
Vice
all.
President is now going to your home state on Saturday. It sounds like the administration is trying at least to brush you back a little bit. React to that, but also when you say, look, it's not a binary choice, you don't have my vote, Mr. Speaker.
Right.
You might imperil the Trump presidency.
Well, no, not at all.
Well, what if this all comes crashing down?
I'm a big friend of the president.
But this may come crashing down.
And also, you won't meet anybody who dislikes Obamacare more than me. I'm a physician. I have lived Obamacare. It is a disaster. I have voted to repeal it, and I will vote again. But I will not vote for Obamacare light stuck on the repeal bill. We're going to have to separate repeal from replace. We have disagreements, serious, fundamental policy disagreements with the Speaker. We're going to have to separate repeal from replacement, or the deal doesn't get done.
Wow. All right. There's a couple of things I want to point out. I would imagine that he has not, as a physician, seen any patients that are covered by Kentucky Connect.
But just the notion that you might have a black person go in your waiting room and say, I demand care. It just sends shivers down your spine. And then you turn around and all of a sudden there's some Indian guy who looks like Deepak Chopra or whatever, and he's practicing medicine. I mean, it's dystopic.
It's interesting that he both sounded like he was willing to negotiate with Paul Ryan, and then at the end seemed like all I want is the tax cuts, that it would come from the repeal.
I'm willing to negotiate if we can get to a point where there is zero, even hypothetical access for less than wealthy people to have health care, and we give even more money away. Then
it
we
also
can talk.
seemed like he was arguing that you shouldn't be able to buy health insurance if you have pre-existing conditions.
Yeah, well, obviously you're gross. I mean, it's sort of like the cooties principle. I mean, if we could just get back to basics, and then we could solve some problems in this country.
Let's go to the phones. I'm not going to get to everybody. I'm sorry. We'll go first. 412. Where are you calling from? What's your name? What's on your mind?
Hey, can you hear me, Sam?
Yep.
Hey, oh, okay. Well, Super Trucker Jim. I just wanted to call and I got this as a gift at about Christmas time. I used to call in, and then you guys would get to me, but I just hang up because I used to listen to them two Ken fellas.
Uh-huh.
All right, those guys get it. So on the days that you guys flip over and you're gone, those guys get it. And I think you do well to bring them on as guests because I think they can enlighten you a little bit, all right?
Well, I think it's getting around that time where we occasionally take a day off, and maybe Ken will be showing up soon.
No, I already agree with them. I don't like to get stuck in my little bubble. I would really like it if you had a discussion with them and they maybe could enlighten you a little bit because I already know what they're talking about. All right.
I saw what they did to Michael Schur. I don't want to take that risk, frankly.
Yeah. What?
They
What
cucked
they
him.
do to Michael Schur? I don't know.
They cucked him the last time. It was
well,
intense. Yeah.
it's not their fault if he looks like a cuck because he is one.
Well, I appreciate.
All right. Well, I tell you what, you guys, I'll leave you with this. Have a good weekend. Do a little bit of research on your own. Don't listen to what the mainstream media tells you. I can tell you listen to MSNBC all day. You're best friends with I don't know, all them people. But just do a little bit of research, okay? InfoWars is your friend.
All right,
okay?
well, I appreciate that.
So have a good weekend. Love InfoWars.
But
Info fucking Wars. Best fucking show. It's run by an actual fucking man.
Calling from a 503 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Samuel.
Hello?
This is Dr. G calling from D.C.
Hello, Dr. G.
Do you have a stroke, Dr. G?
Have we ever met Samuel?
I don't believe so.
Do I even know you?
Well, I mean, you did address me as Samuel, so I mean, I don't know. Do you?
I'll have you know, Sam, that I met my wife, Catherine, when she invited me to be a stud bull with her and her husband.
I'm glad to hear that. Congratulations.
We've been happily married ever since.
You totally alpha mailed her former husband.
Sam, in 1992, I moved to Hungary, where I worked at the Hungarian Ministry of Defense.
Yes. I think that the real Dr. G is a little bit more, he's a little more peppy. This is Dr. G.
Dr. G, gotta let you go.
Okay, well, I tried my best. But I wanted to tell you guys thank you to introducing me to the world of cuckold. I had been talking to my wife about possibly being in a stud bowl.
Appreciate the
call.
Appreciate the call.
I think I'm getting pretty close.
All right.
Before I started listening to the Majority Report, I had no...
Good luck with that. Okay.
He had no idea. He just kept going. Wait, do we have the picture of Dr. Gorka in his Nazi Chinese court scholar outfit?
Plants on Fire. I get that. All right, let's see. Disco Stew, NPR Morning Edition segment this morning had interviews with elderly Trump voters in North Carolina. One guy specifically endorsed white supremacy with zero pushback or even comment from the reporter and host. That's aside from the blatant Islamophobia and repeated mistruths they spoke about Trump's accomplishments. The normalization continues unabated. Matthew Film Guy, have you ever seen this pricelessly ironic clip Errol Morris made of Donald Trump giving us his ultra unself-aware, almost insightful take on Citizen Kane? You can lead an orangutan to the cinema, but you can't make him learn anything from it. I have not seen this. Let's see.
It's like sad.
I'll take a look at it. I can't... Gotta figure out how to play that on. Suggs. Great show today. Really enjoyed the Stephen Elliott segment. That Greg Gutfield guy is a complete moron. Classic Republican strategy. When you can't think on your feet, always swing back to the right-wing talking points. I mean, honestly, I think that is why even like the conservative comedy is not funny, because it's really the only shared experience they have has already been written in the form of these talking points. Anthony from Baltimore, legend has it if you say beta cuck in the mirror 3 times, Dr. G will materialize behind you and will not vanish until he's thoroughly cucked you. Comrade Biden, Sam, arguing is to be directed towards people acting in faith. When somebody argues in bad faith, you tell Callie to mask up and start bashing. Larry Guilford.
Could Mr. Trump please cuck me? It would be an honor.
Larry Guilford. Paul Ryan's inspired me to call my car insurance company and tell them I only want my premiums to be spent on me and people who do not get into accidents. Never heard of her. Ironic and hypocritical, someone would write a song complaining about disparaging Bernie and specifically praising a person who pushed the Parkinson story about Clinton. Oh, the hypocrisy. Sad. Good song, aside from content. Ooh, shots fired.
That's fired.
Twitter fingers. Ruben was on Gutfield's show a few days ago because, of course, I'd love to see a clip from this. I know, too much to ask.
Oh, my God.
Ugh.
That's
Staten
brutal.
Island Mike. Say what you will about Mondays. I don't remember the second-string host ever subjecting us to Twitter fight play-by-plays. Joseph Ballin. Gabbard is sponsoring bills in Congress right now that would bring back Glass-Steagall Act, legalize cannabis nationwide, and stop arming ISIL, Al-Qaeda, Taliban forces. Is it because you got a hard-on to overthrow Assad? Regardless of what we, including me, may want in Syria, Assad is still the duly elected president of Syria.
No, that is all right. Whatever. I'll
Duly
get to it on
elected
Monday.
president?
Duly elected. That's really a term that you want to use to describe Assad. Like, what the fuck is the matter with you?
Come on, dude.
And all of these people are propped by proxy in the proxy war, and he wouldn't still be there if it wasn't for Russian and Iranian intervention. So I don't understand, especially when you have the luxury.
Duly elected?
That's insane. When you're in a position where you don't actually have to make like a hard choice about any of this, it's great because you can say, I oppose all of the actors here committing war crimes, which are pretty much all of them, except for the Kurds.
Bradbot. I read those Gutfield replies in right-wing. I read those the replies in right-wing Mandela voice. Sexy liberal 44. I had your back in the Gutfield fight. Those people are so amazingly boring in their attempts to be funny. I know. I just got bored very quickly with that.
Oh, really? She didn't find it funny? Ha ha.
Can you explain why sales taxes are regressive? Yes, because if I'm a millionaire, I mean, I'm just going to use examples that aren't necessarily, bread isn't necessarily taxed. But if I'm a millionaire, right, I'm going to buy a loaf of bread. If I am someone who makes $15,000 a year, I'm going to buy a loaf of bread. If that bread costs $3.99 for the loaf, and there's 10% tax on it, so we got each of us pay 40 cents on that loaf of bread. That 40 cents represents a far less percentage of my income or net worth as a millionaire than mine as someone who makes $15,000 a year. So bread's a staple. Things that you purchase are a staple. Sales tax are regressive in that way. Anything that doesn't take into account relative disparity of income is in some fashion regressive. Particularly when you're talking about, staples. Not necessarily, things that you got to buy. Hey, Samantha Makalova, your makeup is horrible. You should get some tips from Kellyanne Conway. Rackham. Jay Tingle.
It actually is funny.
I know who Gutfeld is because Stern used to tout him to replace Letterman. That would have been great. When I say tour, I mean repeatedly. Stern simply doesn't get Colbert. Even when he had him on a show, he's baffled that Colbert is beating Fallon in the ratings. I believe the issue is that Stern can't get the jokes about Trump because he and Trump are similar in many ways. But I sincerely believe that Gutfeld replacing Letterman would have been one of the media events of the young century. I would have watched every episode of that train wreck. One of the Gutfeld trolls tweeted that you pee sitting down, Sam. Say it ain't so. In any event, here's a tampon. I'm sure you can. Max in Maryland. My mom saw Red Eye for the first time recently. She called me to ask what the hell is going on and if I could explain. George and Soul. Greg Gutfeld looks like the fat mother in a Tom and Jerry cartoon. And sometimes try. There's a correlation between right-wing Christianity and a lack of empathy, I think, because sympathy, unlike empathy, is secretly seen as something that makes you better than the people you feel bad for. And as long as you pray and praise Jesus, you've completed any work on your inner self that needs to be done. That's a good point. I appreciate it. Yellow Dog Derek. Jimmy Dore is one of the assholes responsible for brainwashing the dumb left into voting in a way to help Trump get elected. And Jimmy Reefer Cake is awful. When you play one of his new crap songs, I turn the volume down. He songs donkeys. Ben from Oz. Hi, Sam. I stopped watching Alex Jones after the election because I was a bit sickened by the gloating, but now it's become quite fascinating to see him create this bizarre hero president to allow him to support Trump. Dave Rubin was on the show yesterday. What is up with a bunch of people on the left becoming slightly deranged lately? You know, he's not really on the left.
Yeah, Dave Rubin's always just a not a particularly bright guy, and he found an angle.
More Representative Joe Kennedy III, less Harry Reid. Peter Thiel is not the only one who needs new blood.
What's wrong with Harry Reid?
Harry Reid
and what does he have to do with
gone.
anything? Yeah.
E. Greg, sounds like there might be too many cucks in the kitchen by making their oven-ready dinner. By the way, I think Greg guy is funny. What's his name again? Fox guy? Anyone? Matt? Well, whatever his name is, he plays a great straight man to Sam's Twitter cuckoldry. Barron Trump. I constantly get Gutfield and Kilmeade confused. Are we sure they aren't the same person?
Oh, I could see that. Although I think Kilmeade actually has better TV presence.
Nathan, my membership to your show is in no small part due to Red Eye with Greg Gutfield putting the final nail in my conservative beliefs. That's funny. Denver Dave. Sam, there are a few things I care about more than listening to you talk about people you and other people could care less about. Trump's placeholder appointees reminds me of how Bush company populated the Iraq coalitional provision. Yeah, Michael made that same point. But you know what? Those people, the caliber of those people
was higher.
Was significantly higher.
But it was still that you had the element of like, but there were like not at senior levels. You did have like this is a 23-year-old who's an intern
Yes.
at the at American Enterprise.
Yes.
They'll oversee water privatization.
Yes. Politics drawn poorly. Spicer just now on BLS report. They may have been phony in the past, but they're very real now, Spicer says. Trump told him to say. What?
Well, because Trump was always saying the jobs numbers were cooked.
But Spicer said Trump told him to say that?
Spicer actually said that?
Hold on. I'm
Oh,
going to
that's
send you
great.
the link. You have it? Or do you want me to send it? I am me.
Sean, it's really simple. Here's what you do. You say that they're real now, and I said to say that.
You got it? Let's see this. Put this up there. This is crazy.
They're fucking real
This
now.
can't be real. As you know, Donald Trump basically questioned every Bureau of Labor Statistics job report that came out because he couldn't believe that there was any type of job growth or consistent growth. And of course, we're now in the 6th week of the Trump administration. I don't think any reasonable person would actually say that we're seeing any impact from Trump's policies because he hasn't enacted any other than a couple executive orders.
Make it easier to
on-
bribe people.
on the
Oil deal.
economy. But they will take credit for it, just the spirit that's out there. Now, of course, private hiring in the private sector has been rather strong for, I think, now 40 some odd months. But here's Sean Spicer addressing the fact that in the past, people like Sean Spicer specifically and Donald Trump have been very skeptical of these numbers.
In the past, the president has referred to particular job reports as phony or totally fiction. Does the president believe that this jobs report was accurate and a fair way to measure the economy?
Yeah, I talked to the president prior to this, and he said, to quote him very clearly, they may have been phony in the past, but it's very real now. Sarah.
That's incredible. Why is that? And he's laughing too.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That makes total sense. That's the strategy. And it's going to work with their people.
How does
it's going to
that
work with
not
their people.
show up in an ad? Okay, right now there are ads in 30 Freedom Caucus House districts that Paul Ryan is running to get them to vote for their health care bill. How is that clip, and maybe it will be, that clip with already the rollbacks that we have in labor protections, the promises that are coming forward to cut things like overtime pay and whatnot, the sweet idea. Why? I mean, The Democrats have to deal with these issues.
But we want Russia to take care of everything, do you see? Because when the Russians come, then it'll all come tumbling down. And then...
All right, let's see a compilation.
This is great.
Don't believe those phony numbers when you hear 4.9 and 5% unemployment. The number's probably 28, 29, as high as 35. The worst jobs report in 6.5 years. 38,000 jobs. It's going the wrong way, folks.
5% figure is one of the biggest hoaxes. The end of last week, they came out with an anemic jobs report, a terrible jobs report.
So we're sitting around, and Joey Nossox, we say, how we take credit for the new jobs numbers. Joey Nossox has this great fucking point. He goes, you tell Spicer that the jobs reports were fucking lies in the past, and now they're fucking true. I mean, it's just brilliant. It's textbook.
Brian Boatman, there's a great piece in the New Republic about how the blue states subsidize the red states. How come this isn't talked about more?
I've been hearing about that for years.
Yes, I think, but it should be every time, someone talks about, I mean, that's the collectivism that is okay.
But isn't that also like the classic argument that just like they don't care? I mean, I just think like arguments like this, people need to start letting go of. It just doesn't matter.
Right.
It's irrelevant.
Right. It's a hypocrisy argument.
And they don't care.
History beats politics. About yesterday's show, there's speculation in my home state that Joe may run against Baker for governor in the midterms. Although Baker, a Republican, has a quite bizarre 70% approval rating. Sad. Joe in the recent polls has tied numbers. It would be great young face with Dems. We need a very strong progressive like Edward Kennedy.
How old do you need to be to run for governor?
I think he's old enough. He's like 37, 36. That would be good. Charlie Baker is like the classic, like he got so much mileage for not officially endorsing Trump.
Attorney Andrew. Piece regarding Department of Labor overtime rules currently challenged in court. Also, did you look at the article I emailed you about the constitutionality of the American Health Care Act surcharge for late purchases of insurance? I was wondering about that because I didn't see that, and I'll look for it. I was wondering about that because the penalty that was instituted in the mandate for Obamacare was end up deemed a tax because it's paid to the government. But can the government mandate that you pay an extra amount of money to a private insurance company?
That actually gets closer to the types of things that people were arguing for the repeal said it did, right? Which is like the unconstitutionality of forcing you to purchase a product.
That was the argument of the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court ruled because you're actually paying.
No. I'm saying though, but this
penalty.
would literally actually be what they were saying it was because it isn't mediated through the tax. That's interesting.
I was wondering about that too. But I guess the argument would go, I bet, that the government can, I don't know how the bill is written, but it seems to me the government could say, okay, we're going to regulate prices. You can't charge over $100. But part of that regulation is except for in these circumstances. And it seems to me that's the way they could fashion it. Now, I don't know if they'll write the bill that way, and who knows?
Joey Nossox said, say it's not a fucking tax. Ba-boom.
International Herald. What color is Sam's sweater? Blue on blue, black on black. It's a blue on blue. Really cool. You're telling me Ruben is still podcasting from inside Sam Harris's ass?
Yes.
Majority support. Why haven't you played the Justin Amish video? Janeway. Random Rush. We're not going to have time, folks. Bare Hands. Idea for spin-off podcast. Double Gorkas. Kind of writes itself. Millions of dead cucks. Listening to Sam read propaganda lyrics reminds me of Charlton Heston reading lyrics from To Cop Killer. Cuck you. Sam talked about trolling Twitter reminds me of Mike on TYT every time Jimmy D talked. Thames Darwin, angry tweeter with whiny Jew voice 2020. Water Park. Was Leonard Lance that guy that fed grapes to Dom DeLuise in History of the World, Part 1? Rebecca Ford. Normally, Michael's imitations are the best, but Sam's Gorka is my favorite. Sorry, Michael. As a Southerner, though, both you guys need to give up your Sessions imitation.
Oh,
stop!
They have no credibility now.
Well, I'm afraid.
You know, are you offended by making fun of the South? We make fun of every region of this country. Sad.
Including Transylvania.
Does Andy Kindler know you're booking guests who name drop Jeff Zeleny?
That's a good question.
DX Fool.
That Jew girl in the White House.
I sent you the same I am 3 times after Stephen Elliott. Is this I am on? Is this thing on? Deuce Me Daily. Gutfield would make the perfect secretary of comedy in the Trump cabinet. The way you MR members are way cooler than Gutfield fans, they respond to this Twitter battle by also piling on about Sam Cedar being a woman. That's right.
He's a lady.
Man-witch. That's true.
He's a man.
Man-witch. Hello, Majority Reporters. You may not believe me, but with great effort and personal sacrifice, I am occasionally able to jump to a random alternative universe. Shortly after Trump, I made the jump. Now I ask back, why did I return? Because I couldn't stand another minute of Jimmy Dore going on and on about Russia and WikiLeaks and how the Pumas lost us the Supreme Court. It's truly insufferable.
What?
Alt universe.
I don't get it.
I don't get it. Sorry. Single payer. Dems would rather lose than offer policies that threaten their high-end donors. I don't think it's quite that simple. Aaron, Rand Paul hasn't lived sun care. Believe me, folks. Believe me. We bus people into the equator and they sit outside and they feel better. Let's see. I don't think I'll be doing that one. Dmitry Bolevig. I also pee an American president multiple times across country during campaign. Badass Society. Milton Berle used to say a comedian says funny things. Comics say funny things. And Fox News pundits say unfunny things. Unfunnily. Oh.
You butchered that.
No, I didn't.
Oh, they butchered it.
Amsterdam. Some conservative or authoritarian personality types are pretty funny. I think of Patrice O'Neill and Jim Norton.
I don't think Patrice was conservative.
Jim Norton,
Norton's not funny.
I don't know if he's that funny, but I know what you're saying. He's more of a character, I think.
I don't know if you could describe Patrice as conservative.
Sean Spicer, look, Obama's bigger. It's huge. Now look at Trump's. It's teeny, tiny, minuscule. Wu-Tang Clan. Look, I know you seriously can't take any of you seriously when you're in the pocket of Big Sun. All right, we'll take one more phone call. Kelly, pick a number between 1 and 4.
Oops, 3.
3 it is. You're calling from a 989 area code. Who's this?
Hey, it's David from Michigan. I didn't think I was going to call in today, but that healthcare clip from you guys played earlier had me at a call because I hear this all the time from, my brother made a thing against, the ACA like this. It's like, oh, if, single payer is so good, how come this person, Sultan of whatever country or former Prime Minister of Australia comes here? And I remember Glenn Beck when he yelled at that one guest, "Get off my phone!" Mm-hmm. It was, I think he was talking about some Australian Prime Minister who came for surgery. I can't believe I have to say this, but technology is different from healthcare. We have, yes, maybe lots of people who have money come here for expensive healthcare procedures because we invest a lot of money in technology. That has nothing to do with the healthcare system. And they're also all probably, I'm guessing, people who go to European countries for major surgeries too. But why is it that people, I don't get this argument. It's like technology is different from the healthcare system. It is not. Just because we in America have the latest MRI machine that is really good doesn't mean we have the best healthcare system. I can't believe, I don't understand why people can't make the simple distinction.
Well, I'll tell you why. It's because fundamentally, I think conservatives and Republicans do not measure the success of something like healthcare or even the economy based upon the concept of its availability to the greatest amount of people. They perceive it as the biggest number. So, in other words, the economy is doing great if there's 1 billionaire and 100 people making $15,000 a year in this country, 100 million, whatever you want to say, versus 101 people all making, $1 billion broken up into 101 parts. And so their perception is, if we cater to the wealthiest, then that is the measure of our society. I mean, that's the fundamental difference. So it's not just, you're right. It may be technology. It may even be they have access to one of the best surgeons in the world. But the fact is that...
Well, yeah, but also people who are really rich, like the former prime minister, whatever, like they can afford it. It's not like...
Exactly.
That has nothing to do with access to health care.
Well, let me also just make another point. In some places where actually certain places in the Middle East fund public health care pretty generously, like Saudi Arabia actually does have a form of universal health care. So sometimes they actually subsidize their own citizens to come here to get more advanced treatments. But in that case, it's actually still an act of public health care succeeding in another place.
But also, the dictator of Chile, Pinochet, when he had an operation, didn't he go to England? He didn't go to America, so I'm sure they go to Europe too for.
Of course they do,
and Asia. It has to do with all kinds of different factors. It can be specialty. It can be just a specific doctor who is the top surgeon, or
I mean, just also Google health tourism. I mean, we have a lot of people in this country who will go to Asia, who will go to Mexico for dental work, for other types of procedures. I mean, there's a difference between being on the cutting edge of things or providing the best care to princes and kings and queens than it is providing health care.
Have you met those people? They're fucking awesome.
Appreciate the call.
One time I met like a queen and whatnot. She was like a duchess or whatever, and she was just like at Sloan Kettering, like getting care. It was awesome, dude.
All right. Matt, each one will get one letter. G?
J.
Jimmy Reefer Cake. Glad you enjoyed the song, and for those of you who don't get it, I don't give an F about you Clinton mofos. See you on Twitter. Kelly.
Not exactly embodying the change you seek in the world there, buddy.
Oh.
Let me try again.
Another one?
Yes, please.
T.
Try again, please.
L? Are you looking for a particular letter?
Yeah, one that I have here. Go ahead. Another one.
Oh, my God.
I don't have the letters.
P.
One more.
Oh, my
God.
Just pick a normal fucking letter.
S. What the heck is wrong with all the other ones?
Sam, I am.
Not normal. See?
I am a fan. You guys are such socialists. I am a fan of Greg Gutfeld and Sam, but I bet you and he both take off your pants when you take a poop. I have no way of knowing this about you, but I have verified this about Sam Harris. But I've heard some Gutfeld fans say things about you in the bathroom situation that implies things I will not repeat about your gender. I'm not going to say you're a woman. Thousands of people can say it, but I won't say it. I'm better than that.
Glad we picked S. C.
Another one.
No, C. There is C.
There is no C.
All right, D.
Don't
tweet at me requesting a letter be picked.
Dr. G. D. That was it. And I will do the final I am underground. You guys should interview Louise Mensch. She's one connecting the dots with the whole Russia thing. I'm not much
I would prefer to collect.
Connecting too many dots.
There are too many dots in that brain of hers.
See you next week.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my power get paid for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between